Hey guys, Ogalbina here, bringing you guys our APA Evolution Season 3 run. This is going to be a long video. We're going to be going over the entirety of our APA Evo Season 3 run, so definitely sit back and enjoy. It's going to be a good one, but before I jump into it and go over my team that I drafted for the season and all the games and all that stuff, I do want to mention that only a good 30 to 35% of you that are watching videos are actually subscribed. So if you could do me a favor, hit that sub button. It would really help me out. It's free, and it lets me know that you're enjoying what I'm doing. So yeah, with that being said, I do want to quickly go over the team. Nothing super fast, just nothing super long. I hope it's super fast. Kind of just going over what we drafted and my initial thoughts going into the season. So going into the draft, I forget exactly where I was pick-wise. I remember I wasn't super high. I think it was like 7, 8 or something like that. So again, when I have a more middling pick, I kind of want to go into a draft with the mindset of pick the best thing that's left available on the board, thing I want to use most at that point in time, and kind of build around it, obviously. And when it came around to me, Zeraora was still on the board, and I jumped at the opportunity to use this thing. I've actually never been able to draft this thing. Always really wanted to. It's an amazing Pokemon. It's chilling with a 143 speed tier, which is ridiculously fast, 1 point higher than Dragapult, which is also a really nice thing to have on a team, because there really isn't that many things in the format that are viable that are actually faster than that thing. So this gives us a really elite form of speed control outside of Scarfers. We can even outspeed some Scarfers, which is obviously really nice. It's chilling with 112 attack and 102 special attack, so we can go mix. It gets access to Bulk Up and Calm Mind. It gets fighting coverage in close combat, and Focus Blast, and Aura Sphere. Fire Punch, Blaze Kick as fire coverage for potential grass that might want to switch in on us. It's access to Knockoff and Volt Switch. This thing has a plethora of coverage, and it's a really fun mod to build around and kind of, build a draft around and stuff like that. But yeah, with that being said, let's jump into our round 2 pick. So round 2, I ended up grabbing Tapu Bulu. Now, APA Evo this season was a post-DLC draft in the sense that through the data mines through home, we know that certain Pokemon get certain new moves, such as like Tapu Koko getting Play Rough in close combat. Tapu Bulu is very similar in that manner, where it actually gets access to Play Rough in close combat itself now, and I think that makes this Pokemon a big offensive threat. Obviously, with the grassy terrain, it's really strong with Horn Leashes and Wood Hammers. It's got a pretty solid defensive typing. It gives that grassy terrain, which is great for our Zeraora, and it's really nice to kind of formulate a team around that really benefits from grassy terrain, which we do end up doing, at least in my opinion, so later on in this draft, which is really cool. But the addition to Tapu Bulu's move pool, it getting Play Rough makes it an actual fairy type. Now, I loved Bulu in Gen 7. I thought it was an amazing Pokemon, but I drafted it as a grass. I didn't draft it as a fairy because I don't like my fairies having to rely on its really weak base. What is it? 85 special attack stat, Dazzling Gleam. Having to cut into either my defenses or my speed to run it to potentially try and check some dragon types. It's obviously not a good time. So I like having the physical dragon stab now. The physical fairy stab now. I also like having the better fighting coverage opposed to superpower, because we don't like raising our attack twist to lower it, with the superpower drops. I'd rather just, hit him with a big CC and drop both of my defenses and stuff like that. It also gets access to high horsepower, which is cool for some potential poison types and things like that. So I think Bulu's going to be really solid, and we kind of formulate a team that really does benefit from that grassy terrain and really, synergizes well around Bulu and Mence and all that stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on round 3 though. So round 3 comes along, and I wanted to secure a good steel type, something that would, potentially benefit from terrain, but obviously doesn't work against it in its ground coverage, which this Pokemon obviously does. I wanted to get a solid stealth rocker as well, which I think is very important. Obviously, with the grassy terrain, a lot of ground types kind of go off the table once they don't get access to high horsepower and Stomping Tantrum, and a lot of them just really don't appreciate the terrain itself. So I ended up grabbing Metagross. Now, this might be a little bit early of a dive down there into the middle-ish points range, but I think it really fits phenomenally with this team. I think it's great with Bulu. It obviously really covers that steel and 4 times poison weakness that Bulu has. It gives me a solid stealth rocker, and it gives me a solid fairy killer as well, which is going to be nice for members later on. And it really does benefit from that grassy terrain, recovery and weakening of earthquakes and things like that. At least forcing things to run high horsepower and Stomping Tantrum and things like that, which really help with this thing's ridiculous natural bulk, having 80 HP and 130 defense, and still that 135 attack set. So this thing is an absolute powerhouse offensively and running it. It's great with an AV. It's a great, special fairy type check, which I think is really important. It's a great check to a lot of dragons as well. Gets Bullet Punch for priority, gets a bunch of the elemental punches, all besides fire. Gets access to Stomping Tantrum, so we can hit steel types, Stomping Tantrum and Hammer Arm. to hit steel types other than Earthquake if we are ending up bringing our terrain. But terrain isn't, you know, the only thing that this team does. We didn't draft spoilers, Boo Lucha or anything like that. It's more so a team that can function with terrain and enjoys it, but is completely fine outside of it. And I think Metagross is a great benefactor of that. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on to round number 4. So round 4 comes along, and I'm noticing a lot of the waters are going off the board, and a lot of the grounded poisons were going off the board. I actually got sniped for like 3 waters at this point in the draft. I don't remember exactly what they were, but I know that I wanted a bunch of them. And Tentacool was one of the kind of later options that I kind of considered. I think it fits well with the team, obviously. It's another benefactor of the grassy terrain. It gets Rapid Spin, which is great. It gives me some hazard control, which I don't have up to this point, which is really, really nice for us. It gives me T-Spikes and a grounded poison, so I'm not as susceptible to toxic spikes myself, and I can lay them up for things like Bulu to really go crazy with maybe like a sub-leech set, where you're going to see other members on our team really do appreciate that T-Spike support. It's not the most reliable thing as a bulky water, just due to its kind of mediocre-ish natural bulk. It has a great speed F stat and a solid HP stat. A little bit weaker on the defensive side, but I think we have some things to cover it potentially later on the team. But it has a solid speed tier and base 100 too, so it can be a lot faster than you really think. And I've definitely seen Life Orb Tentacool or Offensive Tentacool really pop off. And I think the addition to that Rapid Spin buff, it being a little bit stronger and more so the boost in speed, really does kind of elevate the potential of a offensive Tentacool really going crazy. So our favorite Life Orb Sweeper is going to potentially make its debut in Evo Force, which will obviously be really, really cool. And it's just kind of a solid mod overall. It gives me a solid speed tier, something a little bit faster than our Bulu and Metagross, because obviously our team is pretty slow up to this point. We have Zero with that elite speed tier, but then we drop all the way to Bulu, and then we drop to Metagross. So it kind of gives us something to bridge those things in between, which is obviously really nice. So yeah, that's going to be Tentacool. Let's jump on to the next pick. So for round number 5, we ended up pulling up with the mascot pick. We ended up drafting Salamence, and you guys have how excited I was to try this thing, man. So obviously you guys know if you've been around or you're looking at our logo, we're the Miami Ments. Salamence is one of my favorite Pokemon. I absolutely love it. It's actually my second favorite, and fun fact, my first favorite Pokemon design-wise and nostalgia-wise is actually Metagross. So we ended up getting these two together, which is really cool, having 2 months I really enjoy just as a Pokemon fan. On the same competitive team, which is really, really cool. I'm super excited for that. And fun fact, the last time I tried Salamence, I've only tried Salamence and Metagross one other time in a league, and they're both on the same team as well. It was really early on in my career when I was playing a league called UPO. It was one of my first seasons where I actually made playoffs. It was really, really early in my draft career. Though looking back, I think I used Metagross well. I don't think I utilized Salamence to its fullest potential. I kind of went into it thinking this is a Dragon Dance sweeper. It's going to click Dragon Dance and it's going to blow through teams with its Z move and things like that. It did decent for me. It ended up going like 10-6, 10-7, but it didn't really live up to hype that I really wanted to in that tier 1 slot. But I really do think Salamence, actually, despite losing that Z move potential, was actually pretty significantly buffed this gen with the addition of a couple things. First off, being the heavy duty boots. I think it really does help bulkier Ment sets really get off with, Intimidate, Outpost Mox and stuff like that, really get off that Dragon Dance a lot easier, or even defensive Ment sets. This thing has great bulk. It's a 95 HP, 80 defense, 80 super def. I've definitely seen a lot of bulky Ments go crazy, not to the effect of like a bulky Dragonite with boots, but Ments can definitely do so, especially with that Intimidate buffer, really helping it out. And Dragon being a decent typing defensively and not having to worry about rocks anymore, man. That's amazing. And then another couple additions to this thing move pool being actual usable flying stab, at least on the special side, in Hurricane and Air Slash. Before, it literally had Air Cutter and Fly, and obviously it would have loved getting like Brave Bird. I think Brave Bird would make this thing insane, and it doesn't really make that much sense on it. So I'm not too mad that it didn't get it. I would have loved it, but I'm not too mad that it didn't get it. But Hurricane and Air Slash, you think Ments is that strong 135 base attack, Dragon Dance sweeper, Scarf Moxie sweeper. No, this thing has base 110 special attack, man. This thing is strong on the special side, which makes mixed Ments or even just full special Ments a really, really, really viable bring in a lot of matchups. So I think that really opens up the versatility to its game, making that special Ment set a lot better. Honestly, just really, really good in a lot of matchups. So I'm really excited to be able to potentially showcase that and really kind of showcase the versatility of this Pokemon, opposed to it being, I'm going to click Dragon Dance and be Moxie Scarf and win games offensively. This thing has great defensive utility, there's great mix options and things like that, so I'm really, really excited to use this thing and Metagross alongside each other. So round 6, we end up picking Lowland Persian. Now, I think Lowland Persian fits phenomenal on this team. It gives me a lot of really needed roles for this build that I really was desperately needing at this point in the draft, and not a lot of things fit. So first of all, it gives us a dark type, and I think dark types are incredibly important in a format like this. Now, Lowland Persian isn't the most threatening offensive dark type, but it does have ways of potentially beating down said, bulky psychics and things like that. We obviously stop them from, running mono psychic, store power, crazy shenanigans sets. Being a dark type in itself, we obviously have access to taunt, and we can potentially nasty plot up and boost up with them and things like that. I think nasty plot Persian is a really, really underrated set. It's a really cool mon, and obviously the main allure to this thing with my team is one going to be the speed tier. It makes it to where base 115s aren't as likely to run adamant and modest versus us when they see our or even a little bit above that, like base 120, 125 can't run modest or adamant versus us because of the Salaman's tentacle speed gap in between them, between Zero Aura, which is obviously really nice, and it gives us good momentum and a good pivoting option to lower the special attack and attack something to where Salamence, Bulu, Metagross, Zero Aura, stuff like that can come in and potentially set up and win the game. And I really do love parting shot support, and I think this thing is amazing literally just for that reason on its own. And it just is kind of an added benefit that it helps us fill that dark type role, and it helps us fill that speed tier role and stuff like that. So I think Persian fits phenomenally on this team, and I'm excited to use it this season. Round 7 comes along, and we get probably the Pokemon I'm second most excited to try. I'm really excited to try Mence again. And don't get me wrong, I'm really excited to try Zera with how good it is, but being able to try this Pokemon, I am so excited to try out Mega Camel. Now, obviously, this isn't like a top 10 Mega or anything crazy like that. It's a low tier Mega for a reason, but I think this thing is unbelievably slept on. With its crazy natural bulk, with how ridiculously strong it is, with that 145 special attack and 120 attack stat with sheer force boosted attacks, this thing 2-hit KOs 95% of the game. It's ridiculously strong. Obviously, the downsides to it being that it has base 20 speed, so it's incredibly slow, very slow. But if you patch it up with the Trick Room option later on, potentially it can go pretty crazy. It's actually, really terrifying under Trick Room. And we do draft a couple options to really, help Canberra out in that sense later on. And the other thing, obviously, being the water weakness. Now, I think we cover both of those well. Like I said later, we get a little Trick Room setter. I believe it might even be next round. And we cover the water weakness well. And another thing you have to keep in mind is those Pokemon that you're trying to tech, those, fast electric types, which could potentially give this team a lot of trouble right now. Because Zero Aura can obviously, be immune to the stabs, but it doesn't really have, the greatest natural bulk or, any recovery. And if it's our offensive wing card, that's not a lot of fun. Same with Bulu. This gives us a great electric tech because there is no more hidden power in the game. They can't slap on hidden power water and Oko us after rocks because of our 4x weakness to water. Now, obviously, we have to watch out for bulky waters, but we have Zero Aura and Tapu Bulu to massacre those things, and they still don't want to come in and switch in and take an Earth Power at all. There are very few bulky waters in the game that are not 2-tapped by an Earth Power. So if we can position ourselves correctly, get some hazards up, get some chip. Hamel's a Pokemon that if it comes in the right matchup and in the right position, it can kill something every single time it comes in if you position it correctly. And I think this thing is ridiculously slept on. As for moves that it got in DLC, I don't know too many. All I do know is that it did get Flare Blitz, which is really cool on the physical side because sheer force boosted Flare Blitz is going to be really nice when that Spadef wall tries to come in and take that Flamethrower, or that Fire Blast, or that Earth Power, or something like that. So this thing's ridiculously scary. It's really, really bulky as well with base 70 HP, 100 defense, and 105 Spadef. So like I said, very, very nice bulky pivot. Really, really nice just tank to throw off big, big hits, and if you're able to position it properly. And we do have some decent momentum right now. Not the best, I won't lie. We have Volt Switch Zero Aura, we have Parting Shot Neutron Persian, but if we can position it correctly like that, we can play aggressive on some doubles. We'll be in a good spot. This also gives us a ground type, so we don't lose to electrics, like I said, and it gives us another stealth rocker, which we only have one of in Metagross. And Metagross isn't going to come to every game, and it's definitely not going to run rocks in every game. So Cameru's a Pokemon that can kind of run rocks in pretty much any matchup it really wants to, because it's most of the time going to be clicking dual stabs. And one more cool thing to note that I totally forgot about as I'm rambling on about how cool this Pokemon is we get access to Nature Power, which is really cool with Tapu Bulu, because those bulky waters don't want to try and come in. One right prediction, our Nature Power turns to Energy Ball in a terrain, and we blow them backwards, which is obviously super dope. So this is going to be a really fun Pokemon to try out this season, and I'm really excited to showcase what I think this thing can do as a lower tier Mega. Round 8, we end up grabbing the aforementioned Trick Room Setter in Cofagrigus. Now, this Pokemon is a Pokemon I've used a million times. It's a great Phys-Def wall. It gets access to Paid Slip for semi-reliable recovery. It's a great Trick Room Setter. Obviously, for Camel, it gets Memento, so it's more potential momentum to either Trick Room Memento pass into Camerupt or Memento into Salamence or Zero Aura for them to potentially set up, which is obviously really nice. It gives us a good fighting type check. Now, up to this point, our psychic type is obviously neutral, and Bulu isn't the bulkiest thing, especially when like 90% of fighting types get poison jab. So having a good fighting type check is really, really important for this build in particular, and I really do like that potential option with the Cofag right here. And its job is basically going to be check offensive fightings, maybe be like a, Calm Mind, Rest Talk set 1 week, or a Nasty Plot Trick Room set another week, but mostly just kind of play blanket support role for the rest of the squad. And I think it really does fit out in that kind of role there. Now, round 9 comes along, and I'm noticing I don't have the best hazard options. Now, obviously, I have the T-Spikes option in both Cofag and Tentacruel, more so Tentacruel in most matchups if I do have access to that. And then I have 2 Stealth Rockers, a Mega Camera, and Metagross, but I don't like having 2 Rockers. I like having 3. And one thing I also noticed is that I don't have any Spike support, and Spike support is really important with me, especially on a team with things like Zero Aura that really do appreciate that hazard chip in order to pick up a lot of those 2-hit KOs and OKOs, because it's not, like the most terrifying wall breaker in the world in some matchups. It does need some prior chips sometimes. So I figured Crustle would actually be a pretty solid pickup for us. It gives both access to Stealth Rock and Spikes, so we have that option to run a hazard stack build if we really want to. If our opponent has some subpar, removal options, we could be in a decent spot with a big Crustle here. Obviously, also has access to Shell Smash. It has like Sturdy and Weak Arm, which are 2 cool abilities. Heavy Duty Boots being a cool buff for this thing, obviously allowing you to guarantee keep your Sturdy to either guarantee get a Smash off or guarantee get up a hazard or 2, which is obviously really, really cool. So I think Crustle actually fits really well in that niche role, giving us a potential hazard stack mod for our more offensive threats in the back, and then potentially maybe even providing a Shell Smash sweep or 2 if we're going up against a slower build. So round 10, I wanted to pick up a little bit more momentum. I didn't have a fighting type up to this point, and I wanted a little bit more momentum for my more offensive, wall breakers like Mints that don't have access to that, for Bulu and things like that, for Camel. So I figured Primeape would actually be a pretty cool call here. It gives us a base 95 speed tier, which isn't something that we necessarily needed, but I think is pretty nice to have. It gives us a great Scarfer. It gives us a hazard stack abuser with the new addition of Crustle and having, rocks and spikes, and obviously the T-Spikes option and a couple mobs on our team. If we can deter that defog and obviously keep those things up, it's great. If we can, force a defog as we go hard Primeape on an aggressive play, +2 close combats aren't going to tickle. +2 U-turns aren't even going to tickle. So I think it's a really cool option to potentially do that. And it gives us another solid Scarfer. We didn't have a lot of solid choice Scarf users on this team, which I think is another important thing to have. Mence doesn't really want to run a lot of the time because it wants to be a lot more versatile and run a lot more different things, and it obviously doesn't have the momentum option. Zera definitely doesn't really ever want to run Scarf. Bulu, decent Scarfer as like a wall breaker / revenge killer, but it's not something that's going to be grabbing your team momentum and putting a lot of pressure on the defensive team if they have proper switches. So it's not the most reliable Scarfer. So I figured Prime was a nice option just to be able to have that decent choice Scarfer and have that fighting type momentum gainer and things like that. And for our last pick in round 11, we end up grabbing the absolute GOAT in Behem. Now, this gives us another Trick Room option, which I think is really important. Now, originally for this build, the bulky water, it's coming back to me now as I'm recording this, like 4 months later. But remember in the draft, the original bulky water I wanted was Slowking. And I really wanted Slowking with Mega Campbell because I feel like they pair phenomenally together, and Slowking having that Trick Room teleport option is ridiculous for it. And it gives me a great bulky water, and it was really solid for the team. Now, the only unfortunate thing is that Snake Shuckle King, my co-host in the WBE PR videos, sniped it before I could grab it. So I was kind of waiting until the end because I knew I could grab Behem with, my last points here as a nice budget Trick Room teleport mod to potentially, exploit teams even more with Camel, because I feel like Camel breaks really well for a lot of my more offensive threats, which I think is really important for this team. So I think Behem is a nice, pretty slept on mod there at the bottom. Also gets access to analytics, so it can be a very strong wall break under Trick Room itself, or outside of Trick Room, obviously for some switches, but can be a good potent Trick Room sweeper on its own. Has access to Nasty Plot, has access to like Cosmic Power and Storm Power and a bunch of cool things like that. I think it gets access. No, it doesn't get barrier anymore because it's a snap move. But I think it had access to barrier before. But it's a nice little slept on mod that can give me, even more of a Trick Room aspect. But yeah, that's going to be the team. And we should just jump right into our week 1 battle. So week 1, we ended up going up against Goldoa Dragon. Now, Goldoa's an awesome dude in the community. He's one of the nicest people I've met here playing Pokemon. He's a very solid player as well. I'll leave his link, and any other people that I know that I played against that upload content on YouTube, I'll definitely link that in the description below as well. But Goldoa obviously makes great content. You probably know him if you're here and you know me and stuff like that. But Goldoa had a very scary team. You can see the team that he brought against me. He had a Zygarde, Skarmory, Alola Muck, Rotom Wash, Gardevoir, and Mega Glalie. Now, the team that we ended up bringing this week, and go over it really quick as I have the Poke page pulled up here to the side. We ended up bringing a Lumberry, 4 attacks, 0 Aura. It was, kind of orchestrated a really well break through this team. It stopped a, potential Will-O-Wisp from the Rotom, which is the main thing I had a Lumberry for. You'll see, actually, we are double Lumberry, which is actually really, really cool. But yeah, we are Lumberry with Plasma Fist, Play Rough, Knockoff, Close Combat. We had a Taunt SD, Tapu Bulu with Horn Leech, Play Rough, SD, and obviously Taunt with also Lumberry, again for that Rotom. Rotom was very, very annoying for Mixie to deal with. It was the one thing stopping Mega Camel from claiming to kill every time he came in as well, but so we do have some tech for that later on. Then we also had a Stealth Rock 3 attack Metagross with Stealth Rock, Meteor Mash, Ice Punch, and Bullet Punch. Sorry, changed Thunder Punch off at the last second. Here to check things like Guard, here to check things like the Glalie. We can take it from Zygarde and hit it with a big Ice Punch and things like that, but it's here mainly to get a Brox. Obviously, with the Skarmory here, it's not showing too much of an offensive presence this game. After that, we also have a really defensive Salamence, actually. We were Heavy Duty Boots with Dragon Pulse, Flamethrower, Toxic, and Roost. It's here to actually check Zygarde somewhat because the Dragon coverage is really hard for him to lock into against my team when I have Metagross and Bulu and things like that to potentially take it on. So we can obviously Intimidate, Shuffle around on that thing and not have to worry about rocks is really, really nice. We also beat the Skarmory pretty easily, and we can really chip down my opponent's team really well with this coverage and this set. After that, we have our Mega Camel, which was phenomenally in this matchup, where Fire Blast, Earth Power, Substitute, and Nature Power. Obviously, Nature Power is for that Rotom Wash. If we're able to hit that thing with a Nature Power under the terrain, it turns into Energy Ball, and it does a ridiculous amount. So that's obviously really, really nice. And we can force a lot of switches. We force switch on the Muck, pretty much guaranteed. And we can actually pretty much get up a sub on most variants and have it not actually break our sub, which is really, really cool. And then lastly, we have a Shuckleberry Tentacle with Scald, Ice Beam, Rapid Spin, and Knockoff. It's here to just kind of provide spin support, be an annoying nuisance, to knock off the Muck's AV, which I potentially expected to be in this game. It's here to take it from Zygarde and like Ice Beam it down. Hit it with 2 Ice Beams if it hasn't Dragon Dance or anything like that. So obviously a very, very solid set in this game nonetheless. So going into this game, I am going to lead off with my Salamence. It covers pretty much any kind of lead. Now with this Rotom Wash, I would love to get a Toxic off on this thing. I'd love to get a Dragon Pulse off. So honestly, anything really, really works for this situation. So I am going to throw for Toxic, as I believe he does end up going for the Will-O-Wisp. Expect him to be physical, and this is kind of the benefit of Salamence this gen. Really being able to, or just Salamence in general, really being able to be a lot more of a, versatile nuisance than you would typically think otherwise. So what do you call it? The Muck's going to come out. It's going to click Knockoff. It's going to do a lot to me pre-Mega, but that's completely fine. I'm going to Mega up with my camera up, and because I have this thing chipped, I don't really need to predict around this thing coming in and go for a sub. I can just go off a Fire Blast, and as you see, despite that being a Rotom Wash, that does 47% on the resist, which is absolutely ridiculous. The Pokemon is ridiculously strong. And we weren't even max special attack, which is nuts. So we're going to put this thing in range of Toxic, essentially, which is obviously really nice, and we're going to go into our Bulu. If he wants to go for a Will-O-Wisp catching us or anything like that, we'll obviously eat our Lumberry and be fine. As right here, it is going to go for a Hydro Pump last-ditch effort, as we do Sword Dance, because it was pretty no drawback as this thing died to poison anyways. If he goes into the Skarmory, I can obviously pivot out and do things like that. As I'm going to click Taunt, stop this thing from potentially setting up any hazards in my team, because that can honestly be really, really annoying for us. As right here, I'm going to go into my Tentacle because I'm not too scared of this thing. Deflect is up, but I'm going to be getting Grassy Terrain back, and my opponent doesn't really want to switch in on this. So I'm going to go for a Knockoff, expecting the Muck to potentially want to come in, knock off that thing's AV, which is awesome. Now it definitely doesn't take a hit from Camel. As you do go into the Camel, however, I am potentially 2-hit KO'd from this, as he does end up getting the roll. So maybe I should have calced that, gone into something else, but I didn't have great switch-ins to it. And this puts me in a kind of a precarious situation, because nothing on my team really deals with this thing offensively at this point. I mean, I might have knocked off its AV, but me being a little bit too reckless and going into Camel put me in a pretty shitty position because of the fact that I don't have anything that really immediately threatens this thing out. I can kind of get a big chunk off on whatever it wants to hit. As right here, he is going to stand as I go to my Zero Aura. It's a thing I knew we could 2-hit KO it, and it could not 2-hit KO me. I knew it was AV, so I knew it wouldn't be cursed, so I wasn't too worried about that. As he is going to go for a knockoff, get the Poison Touch as we eat our Lumberry before it can actually knock off our what do you call it, Lumberry, which is actually a really cool interaction that I didn't really think of until now, which is completely fine. And right here he's going to go into the Gardevoir. Now, I won't lie, in hindsight, looking at my prep, my building, and stuff like that, I did a little bit underprepare for Gardevoir. Because in my head, I'm thinking, I got a Metagross, I'll be fine. I got a Tentacle that can be one hit, or something like that. So I figured I would be fine. I figured that Choice wouldn't have a fun time locking into a move versus me. But then I realized this is a great Zero Aura check, man. This is a phenomenal Zero Aura check if it comes in, chases my Volt Absorb. If he's ballsy enough and gets me on a turn where I'm not going to click any other move. So that's what he's going to do right here. And I'm thinking, oh man, I don't have great switch ends to this thing. I just really don't. As I am going to go Metagross. As he makes a good play, he goes for a Shadow Ball. Now, he's going to crit. And this is really unfortunate because, as you're going to see, this chip does 150% end up mattering here in the end, as I am going to be chipped down a ridiculous amount with that Shadow Ball right there. And after Leftovers, I don't even know if that would have 2-hit KO'd me because he's going to reveal to not be a boosting item or anything like that. As I go for the Bullet Punch and the Scarm, and it does reveal to be Rocky Helmet, which makes me even more chipped, and I would just be getting back lefties right here. We're both going to exchange rocks. Figured rocks would be really nice in this instance, as I still do have my spinner as he goes into the tentacle. As I go into the tentacle and just go for a Scald, I figure this thing might want to stay in on me. As he goes for the Defog, which shows that he was rocked Defog, which is always really interesting to me for me to see, as it's a bit counterintuitive in my mind to set up your own rocks and then defog them away afterwards, but I digress. This next turn he's going to go hard Glalie on my Tentacle, and unfortunately I'm not going to nab that burn. That would have been amazing on this thing. It would have been much less threatening, but it is unfortunately going to be able to freeze dry me 2 times. I cannot 2-hit KO with Scald, obviously. I do get the burn that time, but not the biggest deal in the world. Is he's going to go for 1 more freeze dry, knock out my Tentacle. Now I'm in a pretty tough spot in this game, I won't lie to you. The endgame versus Zygarde is looking very iffy, as I can go into my Metagross right here, get that chip off get that Bullet Punch off on the Mega Glalie and knock it out. As right here he's going to go into Zygarde, flick the 1,000 arrows, get a crit, which won't put us in range of another crit. But what I want to do right here is I want to scout for a potential Iron Tail or something like that, as he does end up going for that. But I know that my Mensa can chew that pretty easily with the Intimidate, and this gives me my opportunity to roost up, which is obviously really, really important at this point. So that's obviously going to be really nice for us, getting back up to about 80%, as I am going to save this thing because I do figure I need it later on. And I knew the Ice Punch was pretty obvious, but I don't see my Bulu doing very well in this game at this point with how chipped it is. So right here I am going to go into my Zero Aura, flick Plasma Fist, not knock it out with this one, just do a little grass terrain recovery, so it's kind of coming back to bite me there. And it's going to go for one last ditch Shadow Sneak. I'm going to go for a knockoff because I know it'll knock it out from the range, and down goes the Mug. Now, again, we're in a really tough spot versus this guard because of the fact that Shadow Ball crit last time. I can't live to Moonblast if I hard switch in, potentially, depending on his spread and things like that. So I'm in a really tough spot in finding what to sack at this point in the game. If I was at 50% with my Metagross, I would be in so much better of a spot. I'd be in a ridiculously better spot because I could at least play around this Gardevoir in this end game. But you're going to see Shadow Ball is going to come out. I'm going to go into my Salamence because I know I can chew this hit pretty easily. The Skarmory is going to come out as I do click the Toxic, expecting a potential Zygarde on my Flamethrower, but I am just going to click Flamethrower the next turn, knock out the Skarm, which is obviously super nice, and out comes the Gardevoir. And again, this puts me in a tough spot. I would have had a lot more for this thing otherwise, as I am going to go hard Metagross. I do get the play right, but you're going to see that is a 100% a 2-hit KO, and it wouldn't have been otherwise. So I could have potentially got an Ice Punch off on the Zygarde, something like that. But you're going to see this Scarf Guard is unfortunately going to be able to clean up versus me. If it was a Scarf, I could have potentially won too, but I actually don't think Dragon Balls ever O-code Zygarde without a crit. So obviously that's not the most viable option either. As unfortunately, we're going to drop week 1 to Goldoa. Nothing against him. He played his outs pretty well. He brought a very solid team versus me. It's just that crit really ended up putting us in the back, and then me being a little bit over aggressive and trying to get my Camel in when I was actually 2-hit KO by the Muck probably wasn't the best move on my part either. But hopefully we can bounce back in week 2. Let's go ahead and jump to that game. So week 2, we ended up going up against Colt, and if you look at Colt's team, well, let's go over it real quick. There's a Mega Scizor, there's a Dracovish, there is a Rotom Heat, Neoligo, Azumarill, and Lando Eye that is not Sheer Force Lando Eye, Sand Force, but nonetheless is a big threat. I mean, looking at the team, look how weak to ground and just look how weak to Edgequake the team that I brought is. That Landorus goes crazy versus me. That Azumarill, at the time, we thought it got high horsepower due to the DLC, but that was actually like, a misstep by the coders. But we allowed it in this league because we thought it got it, and because of that, it smashes me. It's terrifying. Neoligo, my switch-in's Camerupt. That's not a switch-in. I don't have switch-ins to this team. the Rotom Heat is very, very difficult for me to pivot on, especially without the camera up. So that's going to be very iffy. Dracovish, my switching is my Dragon type. My Dragon type switching is the Dragon type, and that's not a good time. And Mega Scizor, I think I deal with pretty well, but still a very good Pokemon nonetheless. Oh, I almost just burped on camera. That would have been gross. But as for the team that we ended up bringing this week, I lost a lot of mocks, and I did a lot of mocks and lots of preparation going into this match. I think we built a pretty cool team, but it was definitely very, very scary nonetheless. So first off, we have our Zeraora. We are a Plasma Fist, Blaze Kick, Bulk Up, and Taunt set. Great win con in this endgame if we can chip down and get rid of that Rotom Heat. This thing and that Landorus, if we can chip down the Landorus to about 50% around there. This thing actually goes crazy in this matchup. The Taunt can actually help us beat the Rotom Heat if we chip it down a little bit and get it down a little bit lower, especially because we have a great check in our camo as well. We also have a Dragon Dance, 3 attacks, Heavy Duty Boot Salamence. We are still Intimidate because there are lots of things I want to set up on, and I want to buffer that Dracovish's attacks versus us. We are Dragon Claw, Dragon Dance, Fire Fang, and Thunder Fang. Thunder Fang is for the Azumarill, so we're not walled by that. Fire Fang is for the Scizor, and then Dragon Claw hits like the entirety rest of my opponent's team, as well as the things on the bench. Next up, we have our Tentacool, rocking out with Sludge Wave, Scald, Haze, and Rapid Spin. This is going to be our Azumarill check. This is going to stop potential Belly Drum Azu. It's going to stop Swords Dance Scizor as well. It's a good Scizor check. And my opponent doesn't really appreciate switching in on Scald this game, so Tentacool offensively is actually really, really annoying, despite us being a more defensive set. We have a Spadef Camo, rocking out with Earth Power, Rock Slide, Flamethrower, and Stealth Rock. Going to be our Rock of this week. It's going to be our main check to the Rotom Heat. Again, my opponent does not appreciate switching into Earth Powers or Rock Slides or anything like that. Honestly, they're only switching to my Dual Stabs is going to be that Rotom, but the Sheer Force Rock Slide is going to do a ridiculous amount to it, and it can't really touch us in return other than potentially, like, you know, toxicking us down, which is obviously really annoying. Next up, we have our Lowland Persian. We're actually rocking out the Choice Scarf set with Foul Play, Parting Shot, Play Rough, and Knockoff. I just wanted a fast Scarf for that could outspeed Dracovish and like a Lando and things like that. Throw off Knockoffs, maybe knock off the Dracovish's Choice Scarf to make it to where things like my Zeraora, which we actually are running enough speed for a Scarf Dracovish. So we're actually Jolly Zera this game, which is never fun to have to run Jolly Zera. But it makes it to where our Salamence can outspeed it, which is obviously really nice for Revenge. It makes it to where Tentacool can outspeed it, and it makes it just a lot less threatening. And then Foul Play is just a nice move overall to have, potentially for like a Swords Dance Landorus or something like that, which is obviously really nice. And then lastly, we have our Cofagrigus. We're rocking out with a Colbur Berry with Shadow Ball, Trick Room, Nasty Plot, and Body Press. Body Press is for a Taurus that was in the back. Obviously, it's not very useful in this game, but you're going to look at my opponent's team right here, and you're going to notice they don't have a Ghost Resist. So Nasty Plot Kofag is a phenomenal win con in the endgame. It's a phenomenal breaker, and it's you know, pretty decent at giving you know, Camel some good turns as well. Obviously, the Aqua Jet Azumarill forces us out, but once that's gone, under Trick Room, Camel just kind of claims a couple, despite it being double water on this team, which is obviously nice. So let's go ahead and jump in. My lead this game was always going to be Persian because I could pretty freely get off a knockoff on anything. If the Scizor wanted to lead, I could always Parting Shot out or something else. I have a lot defensively for Scizor. Obviously, the U-turn will be really annoying, but it's not the end of the world this early in the game. So I am going to lead off my Persian. Just click knockoff on this Landorus as it reveals to be leftovers, and it goes for U-turn itself. That chip is amazing, especially if I can get up rocks. It's going to be in range of a Blaze Kick very soon, as they are going to get into the Scizor U-turn on my Tentacool, which is annoying. Out comes the Zazu, and like I said, this thing gets high horsepower, but going in this game, I won't lie, I did not know that, and I was thinking, this is my check to this thing. I'm just going to click a button and hopefully, you know, do a lot of damage to this thing, stop it from potentially, you know, Belly Drum sweeping me and stuff like that, especially with our Black Sludge. +6 Aqua Jet will not kill us from this range at all. As you're going to see, I am going to go for said Sludge Wave, do 56, which is obviously nice. And this thing's going to really go high horsepower and let me live on 1%, which is terrifying. The Aqua Jet's going to take me out afterwards, but obviously that was really, really scary in that instance. Because again, I didn't know this thing got high horsepower. I had to look at that mid-game, what moves does this thing get? Because, yeah, I had legitimately no idea. That was terrifying to me. But this is going to let me a free switch into my Zeraora. This thing is very, very threatening versus my opponent. However, I'm going to go for a Plasma Fist on the incoming Landorus. This is probably more of a bulky set in order to check my Zeraora, because to be fair, everything else in this team could potentially just pretty much hard lose with. Like Calm Mind also smashed this team, minus the Landorus, which is obviously really understandable, but they end up bringing this instead. But what I'm going to do is switch out into my Persian right here, be able to get off a Parting Shot as they go for the rocks and stay in. This is fine. I figure they might go for a U-turn or something of the sorts, as they do end up going for the U-turn, and that's not fun because out comes the Illegal. And like I said before, my switching's camera up, and I don't have a Mega Evolved camera up, and with Rocks up, even when I'm Mega'd, I'm actually 2-hit KO by this. And the fact that I have to sack this off, I felt like I needed everything else at this point. The fact that I have to sack this off means that Rotom Heat becomes a ginormous issue. And as you can see right here, we're not looking in a very hot position for this end game. We're going to take 12 from the Rocks, and then we're going to take 68 from the Power Gem. And we're going to Mega up, but it's not going to matter because we're going to drop immediately. And he's going to get it to +1 special attack. We're going to go into our Persian, potentially knock this thing off. And potentially knock this thing off. Obviously, him switching out into the Scizor is definitely fair. We're going to get a U-turn off as I go into my Kofag. I don't have great switch into this thing anymore now that my Tentacruel and Kofag, my Tentacruel and my, Camerupt are gone. And this is going to allow the Dracovish to come in for free. And again, I don't have anything for this thing. And what I'm going to do right here, though, is I'm going to allow my Kofag to go down. Reason being is I know I died in this hit because I'm not very defensive and I was very chipped. However, what I can do here is obviously get rid of this thing's Strong Jaw, and this gives me a free switch to my Salamence. And I figured this is my best opportunity to break with Salamence in order to set up an endgame for Zeraora, because both of them are looking pretty phenomenal in the back, obviously. Provided I can get chip on Rotom Heat, I think that my Zera can win, because Blaze Kick will 2-hit KO that Landers from there at +1, and we will not be OHKO'd by a +1, by an Earthquake when we're at +1. And obviously, Salamence just kind of runs through this team also as well with this coverage. So we're going to go down to the Fisher's Friend, but what it's going to allow us to do is going to get rid of the Strong Jaw. It's going to allow us to get an Intimidate off of Dracovish, which pretty much gives us a free setup turn. Outrage is going to honestly kind of bounce off of us at this point. And obviously, they don't want to get rid of their Dracovish and lose it because it's still very good in this endgame. As I am going to go for a Dragonite on the switch out into the Azumarill. But thankfully, the last-minute addition of Thunderfang is really going to come up clutch right here. Going to be able to knock out the Azumarill to, definitely enough to this thing at this point, and I'm going to get to knock it out. Now, right here, the Rotom Heat's going to come out. Now, I know this thing could potentially Will-O-Wisp me, which would be annoying, but I know I'm not 2-hit KO by Thunderbolt by most variants, especially more defensive variant at this point, and I can get a lot of damage off on this thing for my Zeraora to potentially win in the back right now, which is obviously really, really solid in itself. With our lefties and stuff like that, we can potentially take on most things left in the back. As right here, I am going to Dragon Dance, as Colt ends up going for a Toxic, and they miss, and this is big, because this is going to allow me to really, really punish their team at this point with a +2 Salamence. Because outside this Rotom from full, nothing takes a hit from this thing at +2. The entirety of my opponent's team just drops at this range. As I'm going to just go for a Dragon Claw this next turn, and actually get a crit. And this is basically going to steal it. That miss was really unfortunate, and that crit was really unfortunate because that Bullet Punch going to do nothing as I Fire Fang, knock that thing clean out, and from there it's just clicking Dragon Claw 3 times and cleaning up a sweep with Immense. So that miss was definitely very, very big, though I think we still could have won with the Zeraora in the back. It would have been a lot more iffy and a lot more difficult, but I think we still potentially had an endgame with the chip on the Rotom that we would have gotten, and we probably would have died to poison afterwards if they would have hit that first poison into us Dragon Claw, even if we did get the crit. But again, it was just a matter of breaking open the team for Zeraora to potentially do good and trying to position it up a sense where he can get up a bulk up when the Landorus is not in at that point. So definitely GG's to call. I do apologize about that miss. That was definitely really, really unfortunate. And yeah, but with that being said, we're going to go into week 3 being 1-1. Let's go ahead and jump into that battle. So week 3, we're going up against Tort, a very, very solid player. But I really wanted to keep the momentum going this week after losing week 1 and winning week 2. I wanted to potentially string together a win streak because, early season wins take a lot of pressure off you at the end of the season. If you can, clinch a playoff spot potentially by later on, that's obviously really, really nice. But this is a very scary team and a very good player, so we're going to have to be, smart about that. So, as you can see, the team that Tor ended up bringing versus us is Landorus T, Clefable, Keldeo, Arcanine, Mega Absol, and Double. Now, big threats to me, Lando, don't have great switch into Lando, especially in the end game, like a mixed Rock Polish set. Or potentially like a Power Up Fly set or something like that can be really scary. Something else I was really scared of was actually Calm Mind Mence. I think Calm Mind Mence is, very good versus me, so we're going to have to be careful about that. Clef is always annoying if it's a, Cosmic Power Clef. I actually have a really tough time breaking and beating that thing down, so we'll have to be careful. Keldeo, I think we do have just pretty solid counterplay too in our Tentacruel and our Tapu Bulu. We'll obviously have to be careful around that. And then the Mega Absol is probably the biggest threat versus me. Mixed Mega Absol kind of runs me one. As you can see, my switch into the Mega Absol this game is a Culver Berry Kofag because I can live 2 knocks, which is pretty scary. But if it's Dark Pulse, that's obviously not a good time. So we're going to have to be careful about it going into it. But our team for this week. So first off, we have a very, very offensive, especially offensive, Salamence with the Sky Plate, rocking out with Hurricane, Roost, Flamethrower, Draco Meteor. If you look at Torch Team, it absolutely rips through it. It does really well offensively, especially if we can bait in something like a Clef or an Arcanine. They take a million from Hurricane. After that, we have a really cool camel set that's better supported later on by one of our members. In our Mega Camera, we are Flamethrower, Earth Power, Flash Cannon, and Eruption. Now, we are a little bit speedy for things like a potential Bronzong that were in the pack, but our main goal is to underspeed pretty much everything on this team that was a weak spot. Get in under Trick Room and click Eruption. Everything on my opponent's team is doing game by Eruption. Their water type is a Keldeo, so everything else is fair game. Potentially a Flash Fire Arcanine, but that thing I'm not worried about because I'm obviously I'm a Mega Camel that can just click Earth Power afterwards. Other than that, everything drops. So it's a great potential either Wall Breaker or Win Con in this potential matchup, which is obviously really, really solid for us. After that, we do have a Taunt, Leech Seed, I believe Sword Dance, Horn Leech, Tapu Bulu, which can obviously do very well. Outside of the Arcanine, it actually kind of body bags the rest of the team. So if we can get rid of the Arcanine, it's very good. We can at least pass Leeches on the Arcanine, chip it down for other members on our team and things like that. We can be aggressive and take advantage of the Arcanine. And it's very pressured versus our team as a whole. We have a Trick Room, Colbur Berry, Shadow Ball, Body Press, Trick Room, Memento, Gofagrigus. With the Colbur Berry, we have enough defense to always OHKO that Mega Absol, which is obviously really, really nice. It stops any body press shenanigans from that double, which is obviously really cool as well. And we're essentially here just to pass Trick Rooms and Mementos into that Mega Camel. As many times as we can get Trick Room up and get Mega Camel in, the more we're going to be successful in this matchup, in all honesty. And then we have just a standard defensive Tentacruel with Haze, Scald, Sludge Wave, Rapid Spin. Going to stop potentially a Calm Mind Keldeo from getting crazy on us. It's going to obviously check a Calm Mind or Cosmic Power Fable. It's going to give us spin support for rocks and things like that because we don't actually have boots on our Salamence this week. And yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into this one. So take it off hyper fast. But going into this one, we're going to lead off with our Metagross. I figured it's a pretty solid lead against most Pokemon in this instance. I figured him to potentially fear a Sugar Berry Ice Punch lure, which I actually was originally one of my teams, to potentially take on a Landorus, which is obviously definitely something I could do. But I figured, obviously with no clear ball dropping, but I figured it'd be just kind of in my best interest to scout him staying in and things like that. I can go Salamence because it also covers his Arcanine switch for him to scout for that, which I think is really important. Because with this thing in for free, look at my opponent's team and look at Hurricane. If I can hit this Hurricane, something is getting to it here. So what I'm going to do is just click that Hurricane. The Arcanine's going to take 70% as it teleports out. And again, that is amazing for our Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu looks amazing in this endgame if we just get that chip off on the Arcanine, obviously. So that puts us in a really good spot on its own. If we can get rid of that thing, we're in a good spot. Now, the Mega Absol is going to come in, and this says I'm going to click Ice Beam, and there's not much you can do about it. So I pivot into my Kofag because I know I can live 2 knocks if that's what it goes for, and I can live an Ice Beam into a knock pretty easily as well. As that is what I'm going to go into right here. It's going to Mega, it's going to throw off an Ice Beam, do 21. Not the most in the world, showing it's probably more physically offensive as they do end up setting up a Trick Room. Now I'm going to go hard Metagross right here because I'm not super scared of what this thing is going to go for. As the Keldeo ends up coming out, this is fine because all this is going to do is allow me to get off a big Zen Headbutt and take out this Arcanine from this range. Now, out comes the double. This is fine. I go into my camera up to potentially stop any shenanigans, some Cotton Guard, Body Press shenanigans, or anything like that, because I know that with the Fluffy, I blow this thing backwards with any fire move with my Mega Camel. But they're actually going to pivot out into their Landers, trying to, catch me taking advantage of the double of potentially, I don't know with what, but it's really late at night when I'm recording this, so there's going to be a few yawns throughout the video, unfortunately. But they're going to get into their Landers, and in their head they might think, okay, I take any one hit from this thing and I get off a big Earthquake, but I know that I'm Eruption Mega Camera Up, and Eruption Mega Camera Up does not have switches whatsoever. So that's what I'm going to click. I'm going to Mega Up, click Eruption, good night Landorus. And that is amazing, because that was one of the biggest threats to my team. Is out comes the Keldeo. I still do have a full health Tentacruel, as it reveals the sub, which tells me it's definitely sub Calm Mind. But honest to God, this is fine, because I do have Haze. I can just kind of click Sludge Waves, try and pepper this thing with some damage, and then go for a Haze in the subsequent turn, as it does end up going for another Calm Mind, which is completely fine, because there comes the Haze, and obviously all the stat changes are gone from there. So Secret Sword's going to come out, do a clean 25, but this is honestly fine. I should even be able to potentially beat this thing 1v1, because it can't sub down on me without a Calm Mind. What I'm going to do right here is go out into my Salamence, as it goes for another substitute. This is definitely unfortunate, because I'm pretty sure I would have broken it without the you know, the Calm Mind boost. But I'm going to scout for a potential Icy Wind or something like that. Go back into my Tentacle, because again, I know I can haze and at least, you know, mitigate this thing. As it shows to be Surf, and being that it's dual stab, my Salamence can beat this, and my Bulu can beat this, as long as it doesn't get too out of hand. As long as I have this Tentacle, it honestly shouldn't. So what I'm going to do is I click on the wrong screen, is I am just going to, you know, click a Sludge Wave. Obviously, unfortunately, not break this thing sub, but the subsequent turn, I am going to be able to click Hazes. It does go for a Secret Sword. That is a lot of damage, which is really unfortunate, but at least the Calm Mind is going to be gone at this point. And after Lefties, this next turn, Secret Sword will not be able to 2-hit KO me, I don't believe, because we do go for a Sludge Wave, and we get off a little bit of chip on this thing. As I'm going to double out into the Bulu, because it covers a sub, covers any switch out and things like that. It's another Secret Sword, that's fine. They were going for the roll potentially, but I don't think it was based on those other 2 ones that hit me. As out comes the double, I am going to Swords Dance. Now, I could have honestly thrown off a Leech Seed, which would have been really, really nice, but I figured my best way was to Swords Dance to potentially punish like the Clefable coming in or something like that. But it's honestly all fine, as they are going to go for a Cotton Guard, reveal to be faster than me, as I do not get the taunt off in time, which is scary. But I'm going to go into Kofag, as I can take this Body Press pretty well, in all honesty. And this thing can't really do anything to me otherwise. As out comes the Mega Absol, I'm going to Trick Room up, as I am just able to go for a Body Press, take out probably the biggest threat to my team at this point, knock it out, and out comes the Clefable. Now, at this point, I'm going to go to Metagross. We're in a really solid position from here. And I don't want to go into my Camel, because once I come in again, I click Eruption, I win the game, and I know I can definitely set a Trick Room on a lot of these things again. So what I'm going to do is just go into my Metagross. I know I can take any 2 hits from this thing. It does reveal the Fire Blast, and you're going to see, unfortunately, despite us being able to take 2, it does get the burn. And that's not a good time, unfortunately, as I am going to double camera up right here. As they do go for another Fire Blast, they miss, so it's a little bit of Divine Justice, because now I'm just going to be able to throw off an Eruption and kind of knock something out at this point. It does suck with the Metagross, because I could have got enough rocks and made it a little bit nicer. It just got off a big Meteor Mash on something, or Zen Headbutt. But in all honesty, it's completely fine, as I do end up just going for an Eruption right here. Do a good 50% to this thing, and it's definitely in range of an Earth Power after. But unfortunately, my Trick Room does end, as the Clefable is going to come out on my Tapu Bulu, which is a bit annoying, but I'm going to go into my Metagross, because I figured it's pretty expendable. I know I have my Tentacle in the back to haze this thing if it really does get out of hand, and I want to potentially get up my rocks just for, you know, some late game chip on some other things. As another Moonblast is going to come out, and he's going to chip me a little bit down to about 5%. As the Keldeo is going to come out one more time, as I am just going to Meteor Mass and miss, but honestly, not the biggest deal in the world, as I am just going to go down this subsequent turn. But I am going to switch out, into my Bulu, because I don't want this thing to sub for free in my face, as I, you know, potentially miss Zen Headbutt and didn't break the sub for some reason, as I know I'm pretty much walling this thing at this point. As the Clefable is going to come out, I am going to go for a Leech Seed, but this thing is Magic Guard, so that does not really help me out in this situation. As I'm going to try and sack off my Metagross, and then I'm really going to try, as it finally goes down to the burn at this point, which is, again, completely fine. Mence is going to come out. Now, I probably should have gone into my Bulu. Bulu was probably my best play, because Horn Leech was not easily switched in on my opponent's team, and I could just get a Kofag Trick Room off if the double ended up coming in. But I kind of wanted to lay some Schmeat down with big Mence here, and throw out some big Hurricanes and pick out some kills with it, because it's my boy, and I wanted to get him more kills after the sweep last week. But they are going to go for a substitute. This is definitely their best play to kind of bait out a miss, as I continuously click Hurricane. I can't click Dragon Pulse, obviously, because I, you know, don't have it. I have Draco, and eventually I'll lower it to my special tactile play to where this thing can beat me. Excuse me. 1v1, as I do miss a Hurricane finally right here as they get down to 19%. This is a bit annoying. I'm going to go on to my Bulu this turn, as they do go for a sub. But after our terrain and potential lefties and things like that come back, we're not taking much from that at all. And then I can kind of just Horn Leech up for free right here and not be in the worst spot in the world, in all honesty, as this thing's not too much of an issue for us anymore going into this point of the battle. As right here, I am just going to throw off yet another Horn Leech, I believe, getting off a lot of damage on whatever wants to come in, being the double, which honestly isn't that much damage, only doing 22 to that thing if we can get fortunate. But like I said, I have a free Kofag, which is obviously really nice at this point, as Kofag is going to come in. And I am going to switch out to my Tentacle just because it's my best switch in. I know I can take 2 of these Moonblasts, especially with the terrain and my Black Sludge coming back. I can take him pretty well. As the Side Shock's going to come out, you do get the Sludge off and get about 50. This is completely fine because this is going to allow me to go to my camera up. And it's going to allow me to claim to kill. This double can do just about nothing to me, as I do Flash Cannon opposed to like Eruptioning or something like that. Doesn't unfortunately take it out, but this gives me my Kofag, and this lets me set up my end game pretty well. As I am going to go into Kofag and kind of, lose some differential in this point in the game, as I am going to Trick Room, and after this last turn where I'm Memento, it's going to give me 3 turns to just kind of click a button versus the rest of my opponent's team. They can't really switch into Eruption plus Rocks at this point. The Keldeo is going to come in. It's at 38%. No, sir. Good night. Down goes the Keldeo, and from this point, everything's going to just drop to Eruption plus Flash Cannon. I mean, the Clefable would have dropped to that too, but I mean, why not just use Flash Cannon just to show off that we brought it for the Clefable. As one last Eruption is going to come off, down goes the double, and we're going to be able to pick up a 3-0 dub here in week 3. Being able to keep the winning streak going, which is obviously awesome. After starting off with a loss in week 1, it's really good to be able to bounce back potentially going forward into future weeks. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into week 4. So week 4, we ended up going up against Amo. We really wanted to extend the win streak to 3 games here after picking up the dub against Tort last week. But Amo definitely has some really big threats in his team. If you look at Melmetal against my build, I don't have great switch-ins to it. My best switch into something like a double Iron Bash, in all honesty, is something like a Metagross, which stopping Tantrum is going to bounce off that thing. Earthquake even bounced off it if we didn't bring Terrain. Tentacruel maybe can pivot in, but again, that ground or that Thunder Punch coverage kind of blows me ass backwards. Same with Mence, it has the Ice Punch coverage, so I don't have great switch into Melmetal at all. I do switch into, honestly, the rest of the team very well. We do have to be very careful of Linoon, because if we don't have our Metagross around, it finds an opportunity to set up that Belly Drum. We honestly can kind of just lose the game to Linoon, which is really, really scary in all honesty. So we're going to have to keep Metagross around for that. But other than that, if we can deal with the Melmetal and Linoon, I think we have a pretty good shot this week. As for the team that we ended up bringing this build, we were a very, very offensive team this week. We had a Life Orb 4 attack 0 Orb. We were mixed. We had Plasma Fizz, Fire Punch, Focus Blast, and Grass Knot. I believe there was a Dawn Phantom build too, which is what the Grass Knot was for, if I'm remembering correctly. We had a Choice Scarf Tapu Bulu with Horn Leech, Close Combat, Play Rough, and Woodhammer. An AV Metagross with Meteor Mash, Stomping Tantrum, Ice Punch, and Bullet Punch. We had a Sheer Force. We had a Stealth Rock 3 attacks, Mega Camel. It was really, really fast this week, and it was really sad because the Donphan didn't actually end up coming. Remember, I was like almost max speed Camel to outspeed that thing if it was running minimal investment, which is really cool. We were Stealth Rock, Flamethrower, Earth Power, and Ancient Power for a Noivern that was left on the bench. And then we were Assault Vest, Tentacruel, Scald Ice Beam, Rapid Spin, and Sludge Wave. Actually covers this team pretty well. Gives me a good pivot into the Feeny. And then we had a DD, Moxie, Yachi Berry, Salamence with Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw, Thunderfang, and Earthquake. Get a little bit of chip on the Melmetal, a little bit of chip on the Feeny, and it honestly kind of just 6-0s my opponent's team if we can set it up in the end game. So, yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the battle. I am going to lead off with my Camerupt. I figured early game rocks are really free. There is no removal on my opponent's team other than the Feeny, as I am going to get him up in the face of the Uxie that is going to yawn me the next turn after getting up its rock self. And this is actually really annoying because I was kind of sitting here in game and I'm realizing, man, I really don't have anything that really wants to switch and take a hit from Uxie, and I really don't have anything that immediately breaks this thing down, especially with this yawn. I can't really just stay in with Camerupt and pepper this thing with flamethrowers, as I'm gonna get the first one off and do 51, and obviously I 3-hit KO that thing through lefties if the yawn didn't pop off. So it's definitely a good bring by Amel there, being able to kind of neutralize Camel here a little bit, as I am gonna pivot Metagross, as they're unfortunately gonna get a knockoff on me, and this makes things like the Rose Raid much scarier versus my team, in all honesty. So right here, I'm going to throw off Meteor Mash. Actually going to miss, which would seem unfortunate at first, but actually due to my miss, this is going to help me out a little bit here in the next turn, because I'm going to click Stomping Tantrum. And if you don't know the mechanics of Stomping Tantrum, if you use a move that fails the turn before, and that encompasses it failing due to an immunity, it failing due to the effect not working, something like that, or failing due to missing, it actually doubles the power of that subsequent Stomping Tantrum. Now, despite Stomping Tantrum obviously not doing much to Melmetal prior to this, after the miss on the Meteor Mash, you're going to see it's going to do a good 52% to this thing, which is amazing. High Horsepower is going to come out. It's not going to knock me out, and I'm going to be able to get a Stomping Tantrum crit, which, as you're going to see, does way less than my one the turn before due to that miss, as they are unfortunately going to go for a Darkest Lariat, take me out, but we have this thing at 3%. I'm going to go to my Camel, click Ancient Power, which was a mistake. I didn't mean to click Ancient Power. I just completely misclicked. It was sitting right next to Flamethrower. Thank God we hit, and thank God it took it out from 3%. I mean, I'd be very surprised if it didn't with the Sheer Force boost. But that was definitely a stupid misclick on my part, but it ended up working out. It was probably pretty funny in the game. It looked like a dumb little flex, but it was totally just a misclick on my end. as down goes the Melmetal, one of the biggest threats to my team. Now, out comes another big threat in the Tapu Fini, as I am going to go hard tentacle. This will give me an opportunity to spin. It'll give me an opportunity to take this thing on decently, as this is going to be my second Assault Vest knocked off this game from the Fini, this time doing it, being able to obviously make it to where I'm not as good of a long-term check to that, or the Rose Raid, as I am going to get the spin-off on this Uxie. But we're in the same issue where I don't really break down this Uxie super well, and I want to stay in, kind of pep this thing. If it wants to get a Brox again on me, I want to be able to spin those away. And if it wants to yawn on my switch out, I don't want to give it that free yawn, as I am going to get off a Sludge Wave. It's going to go for a Psychic, but due to Tentacle just being bulky as hell, it's going to take it pretty easily. I'm going to go for yet another Sludge Wave, as the rocks do end up going up. And unfortunately, this spin is not going to knock it out, as he is going to be able to get off a big yawn in my face, which, not a good time. Not a good time in all honesty, as I am going to switch out to Ments, because I don't expect him to double yawn. Expect him to get up his rocks as I try and potentially either knock him out, and then he can go into the Linoon, which at that point, I think I legitimately lost the game. So there was no way I could really let my Tentacle stay in there and get put to sleep, because I fall asleep due to the yawn, it comes in, it belly drums, and it wins the game. So obviously that's less than ideal. So I'm going to go out into Ments on the rocks, a little bit of an aggressive play. This will allow me to get off a Dragon Claw. I am Moxie, so I'm going to get that boost, get up to +1, which is obviously really clean. And out comes the Fini. And looking at these calcs, again, I don't really deal with Fini very well. And I was looking at the calcs. I live a Moonblast, and Ice Beam does not kill me, obviously, due to my Yachi Berry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a Dragon Dance, get up to +2 attack, because from this range, a Thunder Fang should definitely knock out this thing at +2, just because of how strong Ments is. It's going to go for an Ice Beam. Like I said, do the Yachi. We're going to chew that up, be really, really healthy at this point. And at 88, we're going to click Thunder Fang and clean knock out that Fini, get it to +3 attack. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, damn, we got another Ments sweep. This is super clean. Out comes the Vanillix, and I'm thinking in my head, if he's Ice Shard, he's Ice Shard. I don't have much for that at this point. I'm not going to pivot around it. This is my opportunity to set up with Ments. I come in next time and I'm at 30%. So it's kind of counterintuitive to switch out at this point. It's better to get that information that he does have Ice Shard, opposed to, you know, switching out at this point, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay and click Dragon Claw. I'm looking at the calc. I'm like, okay, this, you know, since this thing packing is like 150% to it, even if he's super bulky Vanillix, as the rocks are going to point in, Still Wording's going to pop. I go for the Dragon Claw, and I do 64%. I was thinking, there's no way I'm a +3 Adamant Salamence versus this Vanillix. And I did 63% to it. Didn't realize this during the game. After I was like, maybe he's max defense, and I'm just not looking at the calc right or something like that. I didn't notice, though, in the game, Mr. Turns Up. Obviously, that's going to weaken my Dragon Staff. I probably could have knocked this thing out with like a +3, you know, Thunder Fang, or a +3 Earthquake, honestly. Probably a +3 Earthquake knocked it out from 75%. But I just wasn't thinking at that point in the game, in all honesty, and I should have obviously clicked that move and done a million to it. But we're going to click Dragon Claw, and unfortunately, we're going to go down to this Blizzard the turn afterwards, and, you know, obviously be in a pretty tough spot versus this thing. But this is going to let me get into my Zera and pretty much claim a couple kills here. This is going to knock out the Vanillix, obviously, down it goes. And next up, out comes the Rose Raid. Now, I know I can definitely knock out an offensive variant with my fire coverage. If he's a little bit bulkier, that's completely fine, because what this does is it opens up an endgame for my Scarf Tapu Bulu to win the game. So we're in a pretty good checkmate position at this point, as I am just going to click the Fire Punch, bring this thing down to 3%, as it does end up clicking Sludge Bomb, not knocking me out, which is nice, because I'm just going to get off, you know, potentially one more hit on this Linoon, but it does end up clicking Extreme Speed. But at the very least, we stopped it from belly drumming up, and this is going to allow me to go into Tapu Bulu, and I know I guaranteed knock this thing out with anything I'm going to go for. So I'm just going to go for Wood Hammer. Down goes the Linoon, and we're going to be able to pick up 3-0 versus Amble this week, keeping the win streak going, and you know, really starting to figure out this team as we're going throughout the league and stuff like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into next week's game. So week 6, we end up going against my buddy Shuckle King, the Slow King Thief. I really wanted to win this game. Shuckle's a really good buddy of mine. He's a really, really solid player. And he was absolutely killing Evo up to this point. I think he was, you know, undefeated up to this point. But he had a very, very scary team with things like Garchomp, Mega Mawile, Cinderace, and then you see the Slow King, Rose Raid, and Thundy Eye on the screen. And it was a very, very tough matchup for me at this point. I really didn't have a lot for his offense. Obviously, look at the Garchomp. What's my Earthquake switch? I mean, like, what's my Earthquake plus Poison Jab? Check. Obviously, my Bulu can switch in, but the Poison Jab's definitely going to hurt from that big Chomper. And then the Mega Mawile, my answer is the X button. I switch a Mega Camo once to it. I can take a hit. That's about it. Other than that, it kind of demolishes me, and he has a whole Slow King for my Mega Camera, so it's not the most reliable check. Plus, I needed to check the Thundy, because without Camel, Thundy runs me a new one as well, with the Electric plus Poison coverage. So this is going to be a very tough matchup. We brought a pretty cool team this week, though. I was really happy with my prep and build this week going into this. We were an AV Zero Aura with Plasma Fist, Knockoff, Play Rough, and Fire Punch. We were a Kebia Berry, Sword Stance, 3 attacks, Bulu with Horn Leech, Play Rough, Close Combat. We were a Lumberry Salamence with Intimidate. We were a very bulky set with Dragon Claw, Fire Fang, Dragon Dance, and Roost. We were a Choppleberry Lowland Persian with Knockoff, Parting Shot, Foul Play, and Play Rough. There was also a Hoopa Unbound chilling in the back, which I didn't have anything for. That was my Hoopa check, was a Persian. Not a good time. And then there was a, we had our Camel, which we were dual stats with Flamethrower, Earth Power, and then Stealth Rock Toxic, the last move. Getting up our rocks, obviously, as our rocker this week, and hopefully catching that Slow King with a Toxic, because it's really nice for the rest of our build. And then we had a really cool Kofag set in the back as our Wincon with Shadow Ball, Calm Mind, Pain Slit, and Will-O-Wisp. Very annoying for his team to take down if we can position it correctly. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump on into the game as I take it off hyper fast again. As this game, I am going to lead off with my Persian. I figured it led off with, against most things, pretty well. And being that the Hoopa wasn't there, this thing was honestly really, really expendable, especially because of the fact that it's just a free Mawile every time something dies, or anytime this thing is forced in on a potential, momentum move or anything like that. Mawile comes in and it clicks a button and I can't really do anything about it. So this is definitely a very, very expendable member, as I am just going to stay and click Knockoff on this Roserade, get rid of its Scarf, get rid of anything like that. It does end up going for a Sludge Bomb, doesn't have the Poison, as I am going to Parting Shot this time. Kind of going to my Camel for free. At -1, this thing isn't going to be doing very much to me, and I want to get my rocks up for later on this game. As unfortunately, it gets a crit and a Poison, and that's not a good time, because like I said, I have nothing for Mega Mawile, I have nothing for Thunders, and this thing being poisoned and at 50%, not a recipe for success, unfortunately. But regardless, I'm going to force this thing out. I'm going to get up my rocks. I figured that's at least very important. He could be Defog Thundy or Port Chain Cinder, but in this matchup, I don't know if they necessarily want to run it. I can see Thundy running it over Cinderace. I think Cinderace has a much better time being just super offensive, forcing on my Camel to get chip on it for other threats in the back, and just being a general nuisance. As right here, I'm going to go into my Persian hard on the Slow King. And he does get the first turn burn. This is unfortunate, because this thing would have put in a little bit more pressure with the knockoff. I could have probably Parting Shot it to threaten this Slow King a little bit more here at this point in the game. But now it's just the freest Mawile potentially the whole time. As in comes the Roserade, a little bit annoying, as I do click a knockoff, do a solid 8% to Big Rose there, as I am going to Parting Shot, trying to save this thing as a sack in the back, as I can go into my Camel and potentially bait a Toxic on that Slow King, which is kind of my end goal here, right here, as it did show to be a lot more defensive and probably not very invested offensively versus me. As out comes the Slow King, as it is going to take rocks, and it's going to take the Toxic, and this is going to be a lot better, kind of chipping it down in range with things like my Salamence and my Kofagus, which definitely can't OHKO it even at +1, which is really nice, as I am going to get the Earth Power off, show that I'm faster, as it does teleport out. This is fine. Obviously, that was definitely a very, very safe play on Shuckle's end, but I didn't really want to give him that free momentum and save my Camel that's at 18% and can't really do much to anything else. 6%, check that. As a Sludge Bomb's going to come out, I just clicked Flamethrower in case this thing wants to stay and set up a Spike, and I was pretty good from there. Now, I'm going to go into my Salamence. Main reason being, I'm Lumberry. I know I can take a Stun Spore from this thing. I know I can shrug off a Poison, and if it doesn't have status itself, I can shrug off a Thunder Wave from the Thunders, which is the main reason that we ended up bringing that Lumberry right here. As I'm going to see this as an opportunity to potentially break through my opponent's team, as I am going to Dragon Dance up right here. If they do elect to stay in, and this is honestly completely fine, as they do throw off a Toxic, but we are going to eat our Lumberry, so this is fine. I'm going to throw off another Dragon Dance, because I figure getting up to +2, if it's, we can potentially really punch our giant hole through this team and open up an endgame for our Bulu, open up an endgame for our Zera, a lot of things. As I am going to Fire Fang, take out that Roserade. If it was, like a max defense Roserade, we actually didn't knock it out at +2 with the Dragon Claw, because we weren't, super invested. So I figured Fire Fang was definitely my best bet, because I know I saw this thing was definitely bulky, to say the very least. And Shuckle's going to go into Mawile right here. And at this point, a +1 Fire Fang does a ridiculous amount to this thing, and I know he probably doesn't want to take this chip. I know he doesn't want to take this chip, and it really, really made me want to go. He's going to use this as an opportunity to pivot out and do his Guard Chomp, his Slow King, something like that, try and stall me down in range of a Sucker Punch, or, just rack up Toxic turns on me and stuff like that, to where he can revenge me later on. But in my mind, I was also thinking, I can't really take this risk and go for that Dragon Claw in this switching, because this thing sets up a Sword Stance on my face, because it's a really bulky set, or something like that, or he clicks Sucker Punch for free, or clicks Play Rough, and I'm just clicking Dragon Claw and getting no chip off. I'm in a really bad spot. So In my head, I'm thinking I kind of have to click Dragon Claw here, as he does make the play pivoting out to Slow King. Very fair play, but I felt like it wasn't in a position to potentially risk that. We're going to miss Fire Fang. Not really going to matter too much, to be completely honest, as I am going to save my Salamence because I like the Intimidate pivoting. I can still check the Cinderace potentially and take a hit from it. I can still maybe even get a Dragon Dance up on something and throw off a big hit in return. But I figured my Persian was much more useless than my Salamence at this point, so I figured it was much better sack in this case to, sack this thing off. Because he is going to go for the Psychic. We are going to rack up another turn of Poison, which is nice as we do finally go down to our Burn, which is kind of a nuisance gone at this point. And I'm going to go to my Zeraora, and I'm going to be able to throw off a big hit at this point. I'm just going to throw off a knockoff. It should knock out pretty much any Slow King from this point, and be able to be in a pretty good position as out comes the Mawile. Now again, this isn't a good position. I don't have switch-ins to this Pokemon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as an opportunity to go into my Ments and intimidate this thing to where my Kofag can take it on a little bit better here in the back, as it is going to go for a knockoff. I thought about going for a... I didn't even have Roost on this set. No, I did have Roost. I thought about potentially going for a Roost in the Sucker, but again, it was an instance of if I do get this play wrong and it does Swords Dance, I think I kind of just lose the game at that point. So I figured my best play was just to Fire Fang, get some chip off on that thing if I could. As right here, this is going to make me switch out into a Kofag. I am Colbur Berry, and I will take away this thing's huge power if it does elect to stay in, and it is -1, so it's honestly a pretty good position for me, as I'm going to just off a Calm Mind. I figured he wouldn't want to stay in as he goes Thundy, and in my head I'm thinking, I take on Thundy pretty well at this point, and if I can get rid of this Thundy and get chip on the Mawile, my endgame with my Bulu is actually pretty solid. So I am going to, and I guess I have to get chip on the Cinderace, as it does unfortunately reveal Toxic. I'm going to get a good 50% off on this thing, but it's going to really lower my longevity. And it does get 28% off with that Thunderbolt, showing me it's very defensive, as I'm going to be able to 2-hit KO with Shadow Ball. I'm going to be able to get a big chip on something else as well, as the Pyro Ball does come out. I'm going to put Shadow Ball one more time, get this thing very low, and be in a pretty decent spot. As out comes my Zera, I'm going to click Knockoff again, in case the Garchomp wants to come in and knock this thing out. Now out comes the Mawile. And again, I knocked out the Cinderace and knocked out this thing. If I can get chip on this thing, and close combat can knock it out, I can potentially just knock out this Garchomp with Play Rough and potentially win the game. So I figured my best play here was to stand Fire Punch. Obviously, I can't really go hard into Bulu on the Mega Mawile, unfortunately, especially with this healthy. So I'm going to get 50% off with the Fire Punch. It's going to Play Rough, clean knock me out, obviously, which is fine because this does put it in range of that close combat. And even after the close combat drops, unless it's like Adamant Life Orb or like Banded Poison Jab, we will live it through our Kabia Berry from this Garchomp. And at this point, after Rock, since it's a very bulky Garchomp, we do knock it out with Play Rough. However, Shuckle is going to reveal the Protect, and this is the second time this season, and the most, egregious, example of it this time, where terrain is really going to come back and bite us in the butt. Because what this is going to do is you're going to see is going to put him just out of range of our Play Rough. Kabia Berry is going to pop as we do live the Poison Jab. Poison doesn't matter because we get 95% off. If you scroll up, obviously, if we go back a turn, this thing was at 94. So we definitely would have knocked it out with that Play Rough if we got, a similar roll on that turn, which is very unfortunate, but obviously the Protect was a very good bring by Mr. Shuckle. So that was a really solid game. Unfortunately, we are going to lose at 1-0 to a very weakened Garchomp. A very low health Garchomp, and we're going to kind of end our 3-week winning streak. We were kind of riding a high there for a second, but unfortunately they fell off there a little bit at the end, and that's unfortunately going to be the end of, what was this, week 5, I think it was week 5, week 6, something like that, where we're going to drop, but hopefully we can bounce back next week. Let's jump into that game. So week 7 rolls along, and we're going up against Grant, hopefully looking to bounce back after I lost the previous week to Shuckle King. He has a very scary team. He has regular Alakazam, Mega Beedrill, Umbreon, Porygon Z, Palisade, and Primarina on the screen. Now, biggest threats to me offensively, Mega Beedrill is terrifying. You're going to see with a very weird makeshift check to it. It's not the most reliable in this matchup. In particular, Zam plus Porygon Z in particular is really scary versus me because they break through each other's checks very well in the sense that one kind of forces in what checks the other. So they're kind of checked by the same thing. And this, particular instance, it's going to be my Metagross. It wants to take hits from both of them, and it obviously doesn't have very reliable recovery. So one can really punch a hole for the other to set up an endgame. Like a Life Orb Alakazam kind of, can be 1v1 by that Metagross, but provided it chips me down, a Scarf Porygon Z can kind of run through me in the endgame. And then Primarina is another Pokemon I really don't switch into as well. But as for the team that we brought this week, we end up bringing Expert Belt 4 attacks, Zeraora with Plasma Fist, Play Rough, Close Combat, and Grass Knot. we brought a very defensive Rocky Helmet Salamence with Dragon Claw, Earthquake, Roost, and Dragon Dance. Now, I know it's pretty weird to obviously run a Dragon Dance set on a more bulky defensive check, but I didn't really need a bunch of move slots, and I figured Dragon Dance with a bulkier set would actually help me facilitate a set that could set up on a lot more and win when there's a little bit more chip than I usually would lead, and we're still adamant with, you know, about 68 attack investment. So it was definitely an option to potentially win, but obviously it's going to take a little bit more chip, and its main job is here to check the beat drill. If I can't check the beat drill, then we're in a bad spot. We have a very Spadef Mega Camel with Stealth Rock, Earth Power, Toxic, and Rock Slide. We have a Shell Smash Crustal making its debut. Shell Smash, Rock Blast, Earthquake knockoff. Obviously, we don't outspeed the beat drill, but if we can get rid of that, we can actually outspeed a good majority of my opponent's team. Zam can potentially outspeed us as well if it's running like max speed, but you know, that's to be seen potentially, or if I mess up my creep or something like that. We have an Assault Vest Metagross with Meteor Mash, Bullet Punch, Ice Punch, and Earthquake. We do need this just to not lose to Zam plus Porygon, but it's going to be very iffy. And then we have a Shuka-Berry, Tentacruel, Rock Out, Scald, Ice Beam, Sludge Wave, and Rapid Spin just for a general Primarina check. And, you know, the Shuka-Berry obviously for the Mega Beedrill. So, jumping into this game. They're going to lead Primarina, as I do lead my Camel. I figured it was my best lead overall versus anything not named Primarina, or potentially like Palossand. It took it from Zam pretty well. It took his Beedrill very well. I get a free Rocks, I get a free Toxic, something like that, and, you know, be in a pretty decent spot. But this Primarina is going to lead. It's going to put me in a very iffy, you know, situation defensively, because the fact that I just don't really switch into this thing, besides my Tentacruel, and it's such an obvious switch. And Grant's going to make a great play here. I do go Tentacruel, and he just clicks Psychic and does a good 68%, and that's really bad. Shows to be Life Orb, which is really scary. He goes hard Beedrill on my Sludge Wave. Again, I'm not in a position where I can really predict. I do get 24% off, which is pretty nice, but I'm not really in a position where I can kind of predict around that thing, and it's going to kind of bite me there, as I do get off a little bit of chip though, so it's not the worst thing in the world. As I am going to go into my Designate, check the Salamence for this thing. I get the Intimidate off. This thing is going to go for a knock off my helmet, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but we are going to get a little bit chip on this thing. We get it Brox one more time. It's in range of Bullet Punch, which is kind of my main goal here, as I am going to go for an Earthquake just to get a little bit of chip off. We decide to stay in or something like that. As out comes the Umbreon. This is fine. It's going to Baton Pass, which is not fine, as out comes the Primarina once again, and it's just going to click Surf, and it's not going to knock out my Tentacruel, but it's going to put it pretty freaking low. As out comes the Porygon Z, I'm completely fine with getting 2 Sludge Waves off of this thing, because again, I don't have much for it, when Metagross also has to check the Alakazam at this point. Shadow Ball is going to pop out, and it's going to be able to knock us out. Now, I go into my Metagross here. The Bullet Punch is extremely obvious, as I do throw off a Meteor Mash, because I figured potentially an Umbreon switcher might come in, and if I can get the attack boost, I can actually 2-hit KO that thing. There's a lot of things that could potentially come in and take advantage of me going for a Bullet Punch or something like that, and I figured he'd want to save the Porygon, especially because I haven't been able to show to get up Rocks yet, which is obviously really unfortunate, as the Palossand is going to come in, and that's not a good time, as I am going to go into my Menses. I can take this thing on pretty decently. Out comes the Umbreon though on a double, maybe scouting for an Ice Punch or something like that, as I am going to Roost up though, as it does end up wishing. Keeping this thing healthy for the Beedrill is obviously nice. Even though we don't have our Rocky Helmet, we're still in a decent spot. As my main pivot in this Umbreon is going to be my Camel, because I'm going to try and get a Toxic off on it, and I don't really switch into Foul Play otherwise, obviously. But what this is going to allow, you know, Grant to do is just Baton Pass right back out in his Prim, get a Wish off into it for free, and put me in a really bad spot. As the Surf's going to come out, I knew that wouldn't 2-hit KO me, which is really nice. It's going to put me at about 56%, which means I'm out of range to the next one, which is nice. I can kind of throw off a big hit, but what this is doing is it's making me very weak to a potential Scarf PZ in the back, which is still alive, and a potential Alakazam in the back, which is obviously still chilling at full. So we're in a pretty tough spot here, so I am going to throw off a Meteor Mash and do 64, because this is a very offensive Prim. Get the +1 attack boost, which is going to be really nice coming later, as it is going to go for a Hydro Pump. Miss. So it was actually double Water Stab. He had not revealed the Hydro yet, so I didn't think he was. I was kind of banking on him being only Surf, and he wasn't, but we're going to get a little bit lucky. Get bailed out by the Hydro Miss at that point, and just be able to throw off yet another hit. Earthquake would have knocked that thing out at +1, obviously, at that range. We're going to be in a decent spot. So now that Umbreon's going to come in, and I don't want to allow this thing to Baton Pass for free, so I'm going to stay in a Meteor Mash. I can get in my Camel afterwards and get a Rocks, which I think is very important at this point in the match, especially with the Primarina so freaking low, and I don't want to allow just free Wish passes into it. And he does end up going for a Foul Play, as I get a good 45% off on this thing beforehand, but it puts me in a pretty tough spot otherwise, as I am going to go Camel now. as I am going to just end up getting up my rocks, as this thing does end up protecting. This is great because it's just a free turn for me, as a wish is going to come out. I'm just going to click Earth Power, and I'm going to kind of spam Earth Power whenever this thing wishes up, because I don't want to allow a free pass into the Primarina. If I need to trade my Camel 1v1 just to make sure that Primarina does not get wish passed up, that is 100% what I'm going to do, as I actually had it hovered over it for a second. As I am going to get the Toxic off on this thing, which is again going to greatly reduce its longevity. It's going to wish, I'm going to Earth Power, and it's literally just going to be me spamming Earth Power at this point. My opponent doesn't have a switch into it, and there's no reason for me not to click it at this point, in all honesty, as it's going to get the wish back, but due to the Toxic after the lefties, it's going to be down pretty low, chilling at about 40% right here. As the Palisand is going to come out, I'm going to play rough as a middle ground, because I know that it's going to knock out the, the Umbreon at this point pretty easily. But what it also does is it gets me a little bit of chip on the Palisand, to where if it's not Rindoberry, I can actually knock it out with a Grass Knot at this point, depending on his spread. So, and I knew I obviously lived a Earth Power from here as well. So I'm going to click the play rough, do about 18% to this thing. That's fine, because Grass Knot, you're going to see, is actually going to knock this thing out afterwards. And that's going to put me in a solid spot, because they're going to have to go into their Beedrill. And I know I don't have great switch-ins to this thing at this point, but I know I can live a drill from full, guaranteed. So what I'm going to do is the U-turn comes out, and I'm just going to click another button, man. There's no reason for me to go Mence and get taken advantage of with anything else in the team. I'm going to click Plasma Fist, knock out the Umbreon, out comes the Beedrill again. And again, this is fine, because I'm going to go into my Mence, save my thing, as I expect him to go for like a P-Jab or something like that. He goes for P-Jab, gets off 45%, and I make a little bit of a lapse in judgment right here. In my head, I'm thinking he might be aggressively creeping me. Like, I was creeping very aggressive this game, incredibly aggressive, and I was thinking maybe he was doing the same, trying to, kind of take advantage of my lackluster speed tiers, as, he would creep, like, by Persian or something like that, creeping something else, if that's what I was to bring or something like that. So in my head, I'm thinking, if I can get up a Dragon Dance here, I can potentially win or break a Sash on the Zam, which is very important to me at this point. So what I'm going to do is click Dragon Dance here. In all honesty, my best play at this point was 150%, just to click Earthquake. Earthquake covered so much more, or just Dragon Claw, because I can just Earthquake the Primarina the turn after. Dragon Claw was 150% my best play. It was definitely a throw for me to go for Dragon Dance here, because if he wasn't super aggressive with his creeping and he wanted to catch me being aggressive, which you're going to see right here, he does, he's actually creeping a Adamant Zero Aura or a Modest Zero Aura. He's going to outspeed me after Dragon Dance because of the fact that I am so bulky and slow. I'm going to lose my Mence for literally nothing. I sent out there for 3 turns just to die, which is definitely not a very good play on my part. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Shell Smash Crystal. I'm not going to Shell Smash because I know I want to speed this thing, if the boots are going to get knocked off. So click Earthquake and knock this thing out. Now, this endgame becomes very iffy. I'm a very fast Crystal. Don't know how fast his Primarina is. Obviously, it can be very faster than me, but if it's, a more bulky spread, it might not outspeed me, and I can just knock it out from this range. The next thing, let's go. He goes Primarina first. I think he can potentially be a little bit bulkier. I am very fast like Jolly. I knock out the Primarina, down it goes. Now, next part of this game, it seems a little bit scarier than it is, because you think, oh, well, Zam can kind of beat you right here if it's Sash. The thing is, it didn't actually beat me if it was Sash at this point. I was doing some calcs, and Modest Sash did not knock out my Crustle at this point, I don't believe. If it was Life Orb, it definitely knocked me out. It knocked me out 100% from this range, but if it was Life Orb, that means I just go into Zero Orb and revenge the turn afterwards. So provided it is not Life Orb, then, provided it's not like, Scarf or something like that weird, and it gets like, a big crit on me right here, I should be completely fine versus this Zam in the end game. As right here, the Zam's going to come out, Magic Guard's going to pop, it's going to click Psychic, knocking me out, revealing that it's 100% Life Orb, as I am going to go for a Plasma Fist. This was a guaranteed knockout on the Zam. Down it goes, and we're going to be able to pick up this game 1-0. Despite me playing very shaky in a middle game with the Mets, I would have been in so much better of a position if all I did was just knock out that Beedrill. But you live and you learn. It's not the biggest deal in the world. We ended up walking away with the dub regardless, and we were able to kind of jump back on the winning streak, the winning side of things. But yeah, that being said, let's jump into the next game. So, week 8, I believe it is. We ended up going, is it week 8? I don't know. This week, I've been recording these for like an hour and a half. I'm sorry, I'm tired, guys. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm getting a little bit, short of breath at this point, going all these games back to back to back. But we ended up playing against Austrian Georgia, and he was a very solid player, and he has a very, very scary team. I did like my build a lot for this week, though. So let's go ahead and jump into that. We'll more so get into like the analytics and talking about, you know, what went on during the game as we went into it. So you can see Georgia's team is a Megalopony, it is a Greninja, Chansey, Steelix, Thundurus Therian, excuse me, and a Serena. Now, the team that we brought this week was kind of centered around getting up T-Spikes and really prospering with Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu has a phenomenal matchup, in my opinion. We're Kebia Berry. Let's go ahead and just jump in and, you know, explain the team all over the place. So we have an extra about 4 attacks, 0 aura once again. We have Plasma Fist, Close Combat, Grass Knot, and Knockoff. We have a Bulk Up Tapu Bulu with Horn Leech, Taunt, Stone Edge, and Bulk Up with Kebia Berry. We have a Rest Talk Mega Camel, which is really cool. We're actually an Adamant set. We're Rest Talk, Earth Power, Flare Blitz. Flare Blitz does a ridiculous amount to the Chansey. We can actually 2-hit KO that thing potentially, which is really, really nice. We have our Metagross, which is Stealth Rock, Meteor Mash, Iron, Hammer Arm, and Ice Punch with the leftovers as item. We have a Yachi Berry, Dragon Dance, Salamence with Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw, Aqua Tail, and Brick Break. We also have a Shadow Ball, Body Press, Toxic Spike, Haze, Kofag. Now, my opponent's roster did not have a Ground of Poison on it, or it was a Ground of Poison that I didn't think was very good. One of the two, because I remember Toxic Spike being a really big contention in this matchup, thinking, wow, that's great, in conjunction with something like a bulky Rest Talk Camel, which checks a Thundurus very, very well, and the Serena very well, in conjunction with things like our Bulk Up Tapu Bulu, which, in my opinion, does amazing in this game. If we can eliminate either Gren or Thundy first, we should be able to beat the other one, and then between Bulk Up and Horn Leech and Taunt and things like that, we should kind of be able to go crazy versus my opponent's team with this set. Their Aura can really punch a hole and put on a lot of pressure. The Kofag is, you know, honestly annoying enough to switch into. Metagross is a solid rocker in this game. We have a great Megalopony check. In my head, we have a great matchup, but you're going to see, I'm going to kind of be honest with you guys, this is one of the worst games I've played in a while. I did not play very solid this game. We're going to kind of get into it here as, right here, I am going to lead off my Tapu Bulu. I got a little bit gung-ho, because in my head I'm thinking if I could lead this thing, I can put a big hole in my opponent's team. If they're not Sludge Wave on Thundy or they're not Gunk Shot on Gren, I can obviously, you know, 1v1 one of them and, you know, prosper from there. But you're going to see the Thundy is going to lead off. And I don't want my Kebby to be popped immediately. And I don't Oko this thing with Stone Edge. So I am going to be forced out this turn. Obviously not wanting to potentially take this on. Going to my Camel because it does take it on pretty well. But the Sludge Bomb is going to go off. Excuse me. But I am going to get a little bit of the terrain back. And obviously the poison's not going to happen. U-turn's going to pop right here as I end up going for a Flare Blitz. Now you're going to see that is 51 to the Chansey, but the terrain's going to kind of come back to bite me right here, as it does end up getting up a little bit of health. As right here, I kind of get tunnel vision. I'm thinking, I 2-hit KO this thing, I'm in a good spot. Not even thinking, this thing's probably faster than you, dude. You're a Mega Camera up. And I am going to throw off another Flare Blitz, as this thing can just soft-boiled off the damage and, you know, be in a good spot. I should have taken advantage, I should have taken advantage of the soft-boiled turn and gone out and do an immediate offensive threat, gone out to my Kofag to get a T-Spike, something like that. But instead, I kind of get tunnel vision, as you're going to see, and I just click Flare Blitz again. And what that's going to do is it's just going to put me in range of Seismic Toss. And at this point, too, I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to, you know, rest up this turn and still be in a good spot. No, dude, you're slower, and you're in range of a Seismic Toss now. What do you mean you're going to rest up again? There's nothing you can, you know, really rest up on at this point in the game anyways. So, Camel's going to go down here, and that's really unfortunate. This was a powerhouse in this game. My opponent's fire resist was a Greninja, and I kind of just threw away one of my best offensive breakers in this game, one of my biggest nuisances for my opponent to deal with and switch into. So down goes Camel. We're already in a bad spot, and I'm pretty tilted. I'm going to go into Kofag, and I'm going to get up a T-Spike at this point. As the Thundy comes in, I'm thinking, it's not going to be Defog. I'm going to my Metagross because I don't want to take a big hit. I'm EV, taking on well. Defog's going to come off. Like, damn. Not a good look for your boy. As the Serena is going to come out, I'm going to get my Stealth Rock this turn. Kind of wishing I clicked an Ice Punch there. It's honestly fine, though. I'm going to go Kofag at a potential Rapid Spin, but he showed his Defogger to be Thundy, so unless he's double removal at this point in the game, the Serena's most likely play was going to be Knockoff. So again, that play just didn't make very much sense on my end going into it hard, and just kind of losing my item and getting so chipped with my Kofag. As I'm going to get up a G-Spike, opposed to, you know, just throwing off a Shadow Ball, trying to put on a little bit of offensive pressure. As the Thundy comes in, he's just going to be able to defog again the next turn. So I'm going to throw off a Shadow Ball expecting it to defog, but it doesn't put me in the best position, honestly, because now I have to switch around this thing. It's just going to Volt Switch. So showing that's a very defensive, very interesting Thundy set, more so focused on what do you call it, supporting the team. With Volt Switch's only stat that has Sludge Bomb, you turn Defog. It obviously can spam this Volt Switch now that the Campbell's gone, but not a good spot for us. As the Gren's going to come out, I'm going to get a little bit of leftovers back. It's going to click sub, and at this point, I don't really have much for this thing. I click Hammer Arm, which would have breaking the sub, but unfortunately we're going to miss. And at this point, my tilt levels are through the roof in this game, man. I already have been playing pretty bad, and then I missed this Hammer Arm. I'm like, oh, well, it's over now. I'm garbage. There's no way I can win this now. I put myself in a pretty bad position. Dark Pulse is going to come out. Not a good spot. I'm going to go Zera. I know I can take a hit, as he does end up switching out to the Serena because he's Rocky Helmet, and this is going to really chip down my Zera. I can't really beat this thing 1v1. It's probably in a tough spot. Play Rough is going to pop off on my Cofagrigus as we take away his Queen of the Majesty. It's fine. I'm going to get up my T-Spike. Again, pointless play. Just off a Shadow Ball and get some offensive pressure on it. My opponent's 2 normal type don't really touch you, man. There's no reason to not get up the throw off the Shadow Ball. You can throw off a T-Spike the next turn if they go into the normal type. Like, you know, you're not in a bad spot if you do so. So again, it's going to click Defog on me as I get a Shadow Ball. I'm gonna switch out because I probably don't knock it out with the next one. Unfortunately, as the Sludge Bomb's gonna pop, it's gonna poison my Zera, and at this point I'm like, oh, sick. There we go. We're in a good spot. I'm gonna click Knock Off on the Serena. It's not going to really matter at this point because the poison, we have 1 more hit left in us. I'm going to click Close Combat in case the Steelix ends up coming in, but the Synthesis is just going to pop and it's going to negate all but like 2 of the damage that I did. I'm going to go into Immense, hopefully looking for an opportunity to set up and maybe potentially break through my opponent's team to where a Bulu endgame is possible, but not looking too hot as the Steelix is going to come out. We do have Aqua Tail for this thing, and if it's Ice Fang, we can potentially 2-hit KO depending on his spread. As he is going to prove to be Ice Fang. He's going to get a crit. Doesn't matter. Would have 2-hit KO'd us anyways. Go off another Aqua Tail. Don't get a crit, despite it being boosted crit chance move, I guess. And we are going to go down to the subsequent Ice Fang. But this is going to chip down the Steelix a little bit. Going to throw off a Shadow Ball. Not trying to set off another T-Spike right here, which is obviously really nice. And down goes the Steelix. So not a 6-0 at this point. We're looking alright. Out comes the Gren. It's going to click Dark Pulse. Down goes my Kofag. I click Body Press. That turn obviously prevented it from setting up a sub. At this point, I'm knowing, hey, I know I can at least, kill this thing and preserve a little bit of diff. So I am going to go for a Horn Leech. This thing is just going to end up going for a Gunk Shot and missing. So this actually puts me in a position where, like, maybe I can pull this one back. You never know. I think I can't just due to the overwhelming pressure of my opponent's team at this point versus me. But like I said, you never really know potentially what could happen. As I am going to Horn Leech, kill off that Grand, be in a good spot. Out comes the Thundy, and all I do is Stone Edge this thing, I knock it out, and potentially maybe even be out of range of a Lopunny hit the following turn, something like that. Just due to my KBI, I will let this hit. Sludge Bomb's going to pop. It's going to do 60% to me as I'm going to miss the Stone Edge. Again, I don't think that lost me the game in all honesty. I think my bad playing lost me the game. I think Lopunny, like, fake out into return or Mega Kick or anything like that would have killed me. If not, the Serena would have maybe been able to beat me 1v1 as well. So I don't think that lost me the game. Excuse me. I don't think that would have lost me the game. I think if anything, it just lost me a little bit diff. As second Sludge Bomb is going to come out, we're going to lose 4-0 to George here. He definitely outplayed me like crazy that game. Not my finest hour. This game actually had me major down in the dumps. I really like my build. I just felt like I played really, really awful in this game, in all honesty. One of my least favorite games to watch back. I was not looking forward to re-recording this one. But hopefully we can bounce back next week as we have the past prior weeks after we've lost. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into that game. Now week 9 we end up playing against a Big Daddy Dave. Really cool dude, one of the nicest people in the community. He's an awesome guy. He had a really cool team this season, and it was really terrifying for me to play against. Now, you're going to see the team that he brought. He brought Fortress, Crocodile, Tapu Lele, Toxapex, Mega Manectric, and Darmanitan. He also had things like a Halucha chilling in the back too, which I definitely had to prep for in a good amount. Just by just having a Kofag, it's still pretty scary versus the end game potentially. But you're going to see the team that we end up bringing. Let me go over it really quick. We end up bringing a sub Calm Mind Zeraora. I think it does very well versus this team where Thunderbolt, Substitute, Calm Mind, and Aurasphere. We can potentially beat the entire team if we get behind a sub, honestly. We have a Rest Talk Mega Cam with Flamethrower, Earth Power, Rest and Sleep Talk. We are pretty defensive, pretty speedy as well, though. Not very attack invested, but it does just kind of massacre my opponent's team. There's no switch-ins to it, and we can really take advantage of things like, Menetric and Fortress and things like that to kind of get in for free and throw big hits. After that, we have a Stealth Rock 3 attacks Metagross with Stealth Rock, Meteor Mash, Zen Headbutt, and Bullet Punch, full stabbed out. Hits my team pretty hard outside of the Fortress, but like I said, I have the Camel and the Zero Order to really take advantage of that. We have a Shuka Berry Tentacruel with Scald, Sludge Wave, Earth, Rapid Spin, and Haze. Now this thing is obviously here to check things like Darmanitan. It's here to check and lure things like the Crocodile, which is obviously really nice for our team. It's here to provide spin support versus the potential Hazard Stack offense option that Dave has going. We have a defensive Shadow Ball, Pain Split, Haze, and Body Press Cofagrigus here to take on the likes of the potential, Halusha that could have potentially come versus us. It also can check a Darmanitan decently because we can take 2 hits due to potentially losing its, Gorilla Attacks depending on what it clicks. And then we have a Heavy Duty Boots, Dragon Claw, Earthquake, Roosh, Dragon Dance, Salamence. Here potentially be another great late game win con if we can get Chip on the Tapu Lele. Look at my opponent's team and they look at DD, Roost, Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Mence, and it kind of just wins. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into this one right here. We are going to end up leading off with our Metagross against the Crocodile. This is obviously not super advantageous. I am going to go out in my Mence and take a knockoff pretty well. I will lose my boots, but I do have spin support in the back, so it's not the biggest deal in the world in all honesty, as he does end up going for a knockoff. Again, this is going to be fine though, because now I check this thing a lot better, as I am going to go camera up, doubling out on the Tapu Lele. I expected a potential Fortress to come in, and I wanted to scout for a rock move as well, which would have taken a little bit easier. But in all honesty, this is fine because I can take this thing on pretty decently enough. So it is going to click Calm Mind, but Camel is so ridiculous strong even without the boost. We're going to do a clean 45. I'm going to pivot Metagross. This time not expecting them to click Shadow Ball and be able to get off a lot of damage as they do click Side Shock. I know I will live this next Shadow Ball right here potentially. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot Tentacruel. Again, knowing I can live this hit. Taking good 40-something% from it, but we're going to be able to outspeed him with a Sludge Wave afterwards and knock out that Lele. Really neutralizing a big threat versus our team. So out comes the Mega Menetric, as it is going to Mega Evolve up and throw off a Substitute, leading me to believe that it's Sub-Toxic. Now, right here, Dave is going to miss Toxic. This is really unfortunate because in his mind, he's thinking maybe I can 1v1 this thing, really chip it down, that kind of thing. In all actuality, I was Rest Talk, so I did beat this at 1v1. This is the only Menetric that I really envisioned coming versus my team because Camel is such a hard stop to this thing at this point with no hidden power water existing. So right here, I'm just going to click Flamethrower on the Mist Toxic, be in a good spot. Protect is going to pop off as I do go for an Earth Power, and I can kind of just click it again because there's nothing my opponent can really switch into that takes a hit from this thing very well. Crook's going to come in, but now it's going to be no longer switching ever again. High Horsepower is going to come out, obviously not hitting me. Gonna throw off a Dragon Claw, clean knock out this Crook, and be in a decent spot. Now, next up comes the Darmanitan. And in my head, I'm thinking, I don't have a switch in for this, and I don't need my Mence to win. I don't. There's still a lot of things roadblocking, potentially stopping Mence from winning this game. So, in my head, I'm thinking, it's probably my least expendable member. I'm gonna stay in Dragon Claw and, kind of see what this thing wants to lock into. As it shows that I'm faster, right? I get off a Dragon Claw, as he reveals the Substitute, letting me know that he's Zen Mode Darm. And in my head, I'm thinking, that's scary, but it's not that bad. Because Gorilla Tactics is what I was scared of. I still have the Zero Aura in the back to outspeed this thing if it's not Salic. I still have my Kofag to take a hit. I still have my Bullet Punch from my Metagross to potentially revenge it once I break the sub, which is obviously really nice. So I'm not super worried about this thing in all honesty. As you're going to see, he is going to show to be Zen mode. He's going to click Ice Crash, and he's going to miss. Now, this is really unfortunate because he's going to break the sub and make sure my Metagross can always revenge it. But like I said, I don't think this thing swept me at this point. I still had a very healthy team with a lot of things in the back. Just very, very unfortunate. Kind of puts a really big damper on Dave's plans here, as he shows not to be Salic either. So I'm going to click Dragon Claw, break this thing sub. It clicks Crash again, and it misses again. And this is really unfortunate because of the fact that this just gives him nothing out of this Pokemon that was so good versus me. So I am going to be able to kill with the Dragon Claw, knock it out, and then be in a really good spot. Out comes the Fortress. I'm going to go hard Camel, because again, I just demolished this thing. doesn't do anything to me. As I'm going to click Earth Power, spikes are going to come out, but at this point, does that really matter? I'm going to click Earth Power again, clean knock this thing out, because out comes the Toxapex. I'm going to save this thing just in case for the Manectric if it gets out of hand, go hard into my Zero Aura. Scald's going to pop. You're going to see it's not going to be enough to break my sub, so what I'm going to do this turn, and I'm going to sub down as the Mega Manectric comes in, and I'm assuming its only attacking move is going to be Thunderbolt, because Dave is actually going to end up forfeiting this game. Now, I do feel really bad. I did get a lot of fortunate hacks in my way this game. No denying it. It definitely destroyed Dave differential-wise. Like, that was not fun, and it definitely wasn't a fun side to play on his end. Personally, I do think I would have won this game. I think we were in a very good spot from early on in that game just because of how we played. I think just the score would have been a little bit different, and obviously that is a big deal. So I do apologize to Dave. He's a very good player, and the game definitely wasn't fun to play. I felt bad playing it the whole time, too. Definitely put a sour taste in my mouth, but what can you do? That's Pokemon, unfortunately. This is the game we choose to play despite it really, really sucking. But yeah, that's going to be our week 9. Let's go ahead and jump into the final week of the regular season. So now we're here with my actual week 9 game. Now, I was like a week off from like week 3 onwards, unfortunately. But this is my week 9 game. We still have 2 weeks of regular season to go, not the final week of regular season. I apologize, but we're going up against my good buddy Liv. We've played Liv plenty of times. We played her in GDL recently that went uploaded. We're playing her in BBR that's going up here soon, or even in the past, depending on when I upload this. We've played many times, and we have had many games where I've won and many games where she's won. So this is a game that was important to me because I actually played this right after we played for GDL. But very important for me because if I won this game, I clicked playoffs, and obviously that takes a lot of skin off my back going into the final week. And I don't need to win to get in. So I definitely went crazy in prep for this game. Liv's team consists of the Excadrill, Latias, Hippopotas, the Mega Heracross, Inteleon, and Zapdos. Well, the team that we brought consists of, we are Shukaberry Bulk Up, 3 attacks, 0 Aura, with Plasma Fist, Play Rough, and Close Combat. We were a Heavy Duty Boots, Hurricane, Draco Meteor, Flamethrower, Roosh, Salamence. Actually, no, we were Dragon Claw, because it still 2-hit KO'd the Latias, and I didn't want to, play around with Calm Mind, because Latias is really scary. We were a Black Sludge Tentacool, with Scald, Toxic Haze, and Sludge Wave. We were a Assault Vest Metagross for the 8,000th time, with Medium Resonant, Headbutt, Earthquake, and Ice Punch. We were a Flamethrower, Earth Power, Toxic, and Stealth Rock Mega Camel. We were very defensive, very bulky in order to take a hit from like Excadrill and Heracross guaranteed and things like that. Obviously going to be our Zapdos check as well. And then we were a Nasty Plot, Taunt, Dark Pulse, Power Gem, Persian, which I think is a really cool set this game, and I'm really excited to showcase Persian in a more offensive role, despite the very few times we brought it this season up to this point. Now, obviously big threats to my team. Excadrill kind of runs me one. We're bulkier Salamence to potentially take that on. We got to be careful about that, kind of relying on luring it with the 0 Aura in the sand. The Inteleon, very scary as well. We have Tentacool, that's about it. And the Mega Heracross kills something every single time it comes in. So we're going to have to be very careful going into it with that thing. So, going into this game, they're going to lead Hippopotas, so I'm going to lead Camerupt. Camerupt kind of claims a kill, or, is against this thing, if it is going to be Smooth Rock. And I actually played a mock against John, which, what do you call it? He brought the same exact thing. He brought Smooth Rock Hippo because of how good Drill is versus me. But I know this thing's Earthquake's gonna bounce off me because I'm defensive my end, and I really want my rocks up this game, just because my opponent's only removal is gonna be Zapdos and Latias, and I did see the drill, but if the drill spin, I'm not super worried. I mean, it gives me another turn to really bop or something else, or pivot more safely on it. So I'm gonna get my rocks and at least force that defog if it is something that ends up coming out, as I'm gonna get my rocks and the Latias coming in, and then I'm gonna go hard out into big Metagross on the Surf, which is going to absolutely bounce off. We're going to be able to throw off a pretty free Ice Punch right here. Unfortunately, you're going to catch that Static Para as Zapdos comes in, revealing to be Leftovers, which is completely fine. I'm going to go hard out into Camel. It does reveal to be Sub, so there's another Sub-Toxic set most likely. It's a kind of combat or Camel being really good against these, offensive electric types and things like that. So I'm going to Flamethrower and be able to put this thing out of its sub, as it is going to roost. I'm going to throw off a Toxic because it covers this, and it covers the Latias switch as well. Being able to, roost, get the Toxic off in this thing so it's not for it later. It's going to be really solid. They're going to sub. Honestly, completely fine. Just going to click Flamethrower because it puts me in a good spot regardless, and after the Poison and the Sand, it's going to be out of range of another sub. So calling the Roost play, which is very, very obvious, I'm just going to click Earth Power and blow this thing sideways. It also covered a switch out and anything else as well. I guess an Inteleon, but that doesn't really make any sense. And out comes said Inteleon. It's going to U-turn. Bit of an overplay, if you ask me, because everything outsped me at this point, besides the potential Hippopotas. If we were fast, but we weren't fast at all. So I knew everything outsped me at this point, and everything killed me at this point. So I was just stacking my camo at this point. But they're going to overplay a little bit, and she's going to go for a U-turn, giving me another big hit off on something. As out comes Elias, I'm going to click Earth Power, which is a bit annoying, as I'm just going to be able to click Flamethrower the turn after. It does break a sub of a Latias before it combines, which is important. Going to be able to go to my Metagross IMAV, so I'm going to chew this hit up, be able to throw off a big Ice Punch, and then be able to throw off yet another big Ice Punch, knock out the Latias, and be in a pretty decent spot afterwards. So out can come the Heracross. Can't let this thing sub up. Hopefully I don't get paired. It's just going to click Knock Off though, completely fine. Be able to knock out my guy as I get to go into Salamence, and with no Zapdos, there is no Hurricane switch-ins. So we're going to be able to knock out this Heracross, which is probably the next biggest threat to our team outside of Excadrill. Out comes big Inteleon. Ice Beam's going to pop, but we're going to be able to take it decently enough. And to get my Black Sludge, U-turn's going to come out. Again, this is completely fine because I'm just going to be able to throw off a Scald because I don't expect this thing to stay in. It doesn't really have any way of really hitting me other than Dark Pulse. No, I throw off a Toxic. Maybe Scald was my best play there, to be completely honest. But regardless, I'm going to switch out this turn because I can't let my Tentacle get chipped because I lose to the Inteleon without it, as I'm going to be able to go into my Persian. I'm going to click Nasty Plot right here, as it does end up just clicking Toxic on me. This is fine, though, because what it's going to let me do is claim a kill with the Dark Pulse, as I am going to be able to knock out this Inteleon sack right here, which I figured that the Hippo would be the sack, just because the Inteleon was probably the best way of beating me. If they could somehow get rid of the Zero Aura, and I choked and got rid of that. But completely fine. I know I can live any hit from the Excadrill, as it is going to Sword Stance up. Unfortunately, I won't kill it myself. But if this thing isn't Smooth Rock, I'll be able to outspeed the next turn and win the game with Persian. But it does turn out to be Smooth Rock, which is completely fine though, because I'm going to die to this high horsepower. So I'm going to go into Immense. I know I can live any one hit from this thing, even a Rock Slide at +1. They do live. Don't get flinched. Immutable Flamethrower. Clean knock that thing out and be in a good spot. Because right here, out comes the Hippo. I'm going to click Hurricane in the Sand, extra Chab play, knock out the Hippo, and seal playoffs for the Miami Ments, which is awesome. Very solid game, and it was a good way to bounce back after the really, really tough week prior. The really, really tough week 2 weeks ago, getting a 6-0 into clinching playoffs with a solid 3-0 win is really, really nice for us, just morale-wise, going into playoffs and things like that. But yeah, now finally jump into the final week of the EVO regular season. Week 10, we were going up against Bunny, and this was another potential playoff coach. They had a great season. Not potential, I believe they were clinched as well. They had another great season themselves. This game didn't really matter for me other than seeding. I knew I was clinched to make it into this point. So I did take this team a little bit more lax in the building process because I didn't want to bring my best team just in case I did end up going up against them in the playoffs. But we can go over the squad nonetheless because it still was like a competent build. I didn't like meme or anything like that. So team we brought is going to be an Air Slash Flamethrower, Roost, Dragon Tail, Offensive Salamence actually, which is a very, very interesting set to stop some potential things from really setting up on us, like a Celesteela, because I was very scared when I thought of my Celesteela. We were a Shadow Ball, Psychic, Trick Room, Memento, Cofagrigus, pretty offensive but also pretty defensive as well to check things like Komodo. We were an Eruption Camel once again, making its return to hopefully put the hurt on my opponent. With Eruption, Flamethrower, Earth Power, and Iron Head for the Mega Guard. We were a Kasibberry Metagross with Meteor Mash, Thunder Punch, Zen Headbutt, and a Bullet Punch. We were a Bulk Up 3 attacks, Zeraora with Leftovers, with Plasma Fist, Play Rough, and Close Combat. And then we were Pyappa Berry Tentacle with Sludge Red, Toxic Spikes, Ice Beam, and Haze. Now, going into the team, you can see the team my opponent elected to bring. They brought the Piloswine, they brought the Kartana, they brought the Liepard, Mega Guard, Komodo, and Blastoise. Now, biggest threats off the bat, Shell Smash, Blastoise, gotta know to prep for it. But like I said, kind of built this team very, very fast. Komodo, very, very scary. Mega Guard, I don't have so much into Mega Guard, nobody does. Metagross takes a lot from a Shadow Ball if I wasn't Kasib, and obviously Hyper Wish is gonna really pepper me. I'm basically a one-time check. And the Kartana is a big, big issue as well. We have a bulkier Ments that can kind of take it on, but other than that, we're in a pretty tough spot against it, in all honesty. But let's go ahead and jump in. It was a very fast game. It was a very quick one. Let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to lead Tentacruel as the Blaster comes out. In my head, I'm thinking, oh shit, do I lose turn 1? I didn't really prep for this. I'm going to throw up a T-Spike because my opponent does not have a card at Poison, and I'd like to poison all of these things. The Shell Smash is going to pop. I'm thinking, alright, just don't have Earthquake. We're a very offensive Tentacruel, so Please don't have Earthquake. They're going to have Earthquake, but we're going to get lucky. We're going to live on 1%. Chip this thing down. Be able to get off the haze. I'm going to click Sludge Wave one more time, as they do end up shell smashing again. Now, instead of clicking Earthquake again, you're going to see my opponent is going to actually click Ice Beam, knock me out because I cover like immense switching or something like that. I'm going to go Kofag because in my head I'm thinking, word, I can live any one hit from this thing, and I can Trick Room, and then go into Camel or literally anything else and try and apply some offensive pressure here. As they're going to go for a Hydro Pump, and they're going to miss. This sucks because I know what do you call it? I didn't die to this hit, but it was definitely a good chip, and if they got a crit, obviously they won. So that's definitely very, very big for them there. I'm going to get up a Trick Room, go for Shadow Ball, just chip this thing down if I can, as a Hydro Pump is going to come out and miss again. This one definitely killed because this was Torrent boosted, and we would have died. So again, I do feel very, very bad because that's just kind of a free Kofag for us at this point, as the Liepard's going to come in, get poisoned, and take the Shadow Ball and do this thing just being a Liepard. It's going to take a good 29% and then be chipped down, which is obviously really, really nice for us. So out comes my Salamence. I know I can take hits from this thing, and I know I'll actually be slower than an under Trick Room, so my Trick Room's actually benefiting my Salamence, the Trick Room Sweeper right here, as I am going to be able to throw off an Air Slash. My opponent doesn't really switch an Immense. Well, down it goes, and we're going to pick up a kill with Immense here. Now, out comes the guard. Don't have a great switching list. I'm going to go hard Metagross, just in case this thing wants to go for Hyper Voice, which it probably will. Does, gets off 37%, which is insane. I do live the, Shadow Ball from here, which is very, very important, but, sorry, I'm going back too much. Getting tired. But, yeah, that's going to allow me to kind of just throw off a big, big Meteor Mash. Out comes the Blastoise. We're going to be able to knock it out from 21 because it was a more offensive set and things like that. So, obviously, good for us. That's great. Now, out comes the Kartana. It's going to click knock off on my Kofagus. This sucks because that does a ridiculous amount of damage. And then from there, we're going to just kind of get clean knocked out. Probably should have gone Immense, but not the biggest deal in the world. What this is going to let me do is going to allow me to go big Camel. I know this thing didn't have the Beast Boost because obviously the Mummy happened. And we can kind of just throw off a big, Flamethrower to, knock this thing out and do a lot to whatever wants to come in, which is great. He's going to reveal the Solar Blade and be Power Herb, and in my head I'm thinking, oh shit, does this kill? I'm bulky Camel, but does this kill me? It doesn't, thank God, but it almost does. I'm going to click Earth Power actually, because I knew it would kill this thing because it's a cart. We're going to be in a good spot. Also cover the Kamo switch if we got super aggressive. So out comes the Kamo this turn. I can't let this thing set up for free. I know with the T-Spike Poison, it's going to have a lot more hard of a time of setting up and staying healthy out of range of like a Bullet Punch. So my play 100% here is just to click Earth Power, as it does click Clangorous Soul, which is very scary if I didn't have my T-Spike up, let me say. Like, very, very scary. Throat Spray is going to raise it up, so it's a special set. But after Poison, it's going to be able to get off one hit, as Camel kind of suicides itself out, to take down the Kamo with it due to the T-Spike from Tentacle earlier on in the game. And now from here, what's going to happen is I'm going to go Immense. It was my least useful member, and I can kind of get chip off on whatever wanted to come in from here. If it was a thick, fat Piloswine, I intimidated it down, I lift the Eye Shard, and I can chip it down a little bit. Same thing with the guard. If it was a bulkier set, I could potentially outspeed it and get off a big Air Slash as well. As I am going to get off the Air Slash, it's going to get off a Hyper Voice and kill me. But no, honestly, this is completely fine, because what's going to let me do? So let me go Metagross. I'm going to click Bullet Punch, and then from there, provided I get a little bit of chip off on this Piloswine, as you're going to see I do, I'm going to be able to get off 2 hits on it, which is really, really nice. I could have gone for a Meteor Mash there and potentially just won the game there, but I don't want to miss and have him be like max defense and then live my Zero Aura hit. It just wouldn't be a good time. As I am going to go for a Bullet Punch, get guaranteed chip off. It's going to allow me to go into my Zero Aura and pick up a nice 1-0 win, just to close off the season, give myself a little bit better of a seed. We unfortunately just barely lost out on the bye round 1, but it's not the biggest deal in the world in all honesty. I'd rather kind of, have the gauntlet and go through a play and try and get the championship that way, opposed to kind of be handed it to me and stuff like that. So that's going to be our regular season. We ended up going 7-3, which is awesome. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into our first playoff game. Round 1 of playoffs, we were matched up against my good buddy Pichu. The Pichu Bros, he was on my Clash team. He's so good drafted. He's a great guy. He's a great player. Really, really cool dude. And he is a great, he's a great matchup versus me. He has a lot of really scary things. Now, he had a lot of things he left on the bench that were really scary. He had Torkoal's Son, which is very, very scary, with things like Venusaur and Victini really abusing that, which is definitely something I was expecting. He has the Kyurem, which massacres me. I have my Metagross, and that's it. Metagross is not very good versus a lot of the things on this team. Vaporeon is very tough for me to break through. It's very, very annoying for me to break through. Grimmsnarl is hard for me to switch into. There's a lot of things that are really scary for me defensively this matchup to try and deal with. But offensively, I definitely have some big, big threats. So let's go ahead and go over the squad that we ended up bringing this week. We have a defensive Rest Talk Mega Candle with Flamethrower, Earth Power, Rest, and Sleep Talk. It's here to check the Victini if you're not 2-hit KO'd by Scarf V Create, which is very nice. We have a Trick Room, Nasty Plot, Shadow Ball, Pain Split, Cofagrigus. Here to win the game once we can get rid of that Grimmsnarl. Provided we get rid of that Grimmsnarl, we can definitely win with our Cofag. We have a Rock Blast, Stealth Rock, Spikes, and Earthquake Heavy Duty Boots Crustle. Here to Hazard Deck my opponent without the Torkoal. They have no removal, and the Torkoal was easily spin blocked by my Cofag, which is obviously really nice. So being able to spin block versus this team and particularly Hazard Stack it with the Victini and the Kyurem and things like that is really nice. We have a Life Orb, 3 attacks, Special Salamence with Air Slash, Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, and Roost. Really punches a hole through my opponent's team. Again, once that Grimmsnarl goes down, I click Draco and I claim the kill, which is awesome. We have an Assault Vest, Metagross, Meteor Mash, Earthquake, Zen, Headbutt, and Bullet Punch. It's here to check that Kyurem, though to be honest, we don't really check that Kyurem, to be completely fair, but we'll have to be, careful around it. Then we have a really cool tentacle set that I'm excited to use in Scald, Sludge Bomb, Substitute, Acid Spray. It's here to take advantage of that Vaporeon, which is honestly probably the best switch into this thing. We can take advantage of literally everything and really put a lot of pressure on my opponent's team because their fastest mod is at base 100. So provided we win that speed tie, we actually outspeed everything on my opponent's team. So that's obviously all. And if we're behind a sub, we can take away that guessing game, which is great. So let's go ahead and jump into the match. Leading off, I'm going to lead off my Crustle. I want to get off lots of hazards. Out comes the Grimmsnarl. It clicks Trick, which is terrifying. I was like, where did it trick me? It ends up tricking me a Choice Scarf, which is not fun because that means I can't get up multiple layers of hazards. As I am going to get my rocks, as I am going to switch out into my Tentacruel. Didn't have great switch into that, and I could offensively pressure from there, but they're going to make the switch out into that Kyurem, trying to take advantage of me being Choice Lock potentially and things like that. As they are going to be able to click an Earth Power on my switch because it obviously hit my Tentacruel as well. But I knew I could take 2 of those pretty easy and be in a pretty decent spot. Otherwise, out comes the Vaporeon. This is completely fine. I'm going to make the double out into my Tentacruel because I want to take advantage of this thing, get behind a sub, and Acid Spray up, and I basically claim a kill on whatever wants to come in at this point with my Tentacruel, just because of how offensively this thing, how much offensive pressure this thing puts when I get things down to -2 special defense and things. As the Venusaur is going to receive the Wish, but at -2, that Sludge Bomb does 73%. So that's a lot. Being able to really put that thing in range of the next one. Obviously knocking out the Venu, which is really nice for our Metagross, taking a lot of pressure off of it. Now out comes Pikachu. I said, oh no. That's a Pikachu. I don't know what it does. Looking at this game afterwards, I actually knocked this thing out with a Sludge Bomb. Like, I definitely knocked this thing out with a Sludge Bomb. I should have just stayed in, Sludge Bomb, knocked it out. I wasn't calcing for some reason. In my head, I'm thinking, oh no, it's a Pikachu. What the hell do I do? It's a Pikachu. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out here. I'm like, maybe it's Scarf. I have no idea. It goes for a knockoff. It gets a crit on Big Mr. President. Not the biggest deal, though, because we were outside and knocked out by Surf anyways. Down it goes as we go into our Metagross the turn after, and this is a really bad play. This play made no sense. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not calcing because I was kind of flustered by the Pikachu ring in general, to be completely honest. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, I live a hit and I knock it out, so I'm good. With Earthquake, not thinking you can go into your Tentacruel and show it out to be Scarf. You can go into your Ments, you can knock it out with that. You can go into your Cofag and put yourself a Trick Room on that. Like, you had so many options. It's insane, but I elected to go into my Metagross and just sack a Pokemon for free. And at this level of gameplay with this league and these players, you can't just give away resources for free. It's going to put you in a bad position later. I got away with it versus Grand earlier in the season, but it's going to be really hard to be able to do this in a playoff game and come back. So I'm going to go Meds this time, but I probably should have done the first time. I couldn't even Oko me before, so like I really lost nothing. I'm going to have to put Draco here as the Grimmsnarl is going to come out for free. Camel's going to come out. I'm going to be in a tough spot because my Earth Power and Flamethrowers are going to do a lot less to this thing when the light screens up. As an Ice Beam is going to pop off, I'm going to click Flamethrower one more time, force this thing into a potential Roost turn. go into my Kofag because I know that I'm not 2-hit KO by this thing potentially as it goes for a Shadow Ball. Oh, damn it. Shadow Ball on it. And I Pain Split it to potentially get some health back on that Grimmsnarl potentially coming in as it goes for an Ice Beam. I'm going to Trick Room up. Pain Split again because I know I can live a potential Shadow Ball maybe as I expect them to maybe go for a Roost right here. Now they're going to go for a Roost again, expect me to Pain Split. So I get them on that turn. Throw off a big Shadow Ball. And then we're going to die to their Shadow Ball. Now, this is fine because I get in my KO for free, and I kind of get to click Earth Power for free. The Vaporeon can come in, and this thing is shown to be Boots, so it can definitely come back in later and boost up, or just be annoying. Though I didn't expect it to, but that's completely fine, as I am going to get the Earth Power off of the Vaporeon, and I can still potentially take advantage of him with my Tentacruel, as he is going to throw up a Wish. Again, I'm completely fine with this, because I'm just going to throw up a Sludge Bomb. I expect him to potentially pass out into the Tentacruel, into the Kyurem to try and take advantage of my sub play or something like that. But my play by far was just to throw off a Sludge Bomb because it covered literally anything. Nothing switched in and took that hit very well, as we are going to catch that thing, completely knock it out, and be in a good spot. Now out comes the Victini. Bad position. We're essentially going to have to kind of sack off our camera up right here. I just got to see what this thing is. It shows to be Size Shock. It's going to knock us out right here. That is not a good time, because what that's going to do is it's going to make it to where my Tentacle definitely dies, so that I hit through a Psychic. I actually lived it, and I'm going to be forced into my Mence right here. I'm going to throw off an Air Slash, as he ends up going for a Trick, stealing my Life Orb. This is interesting, because I figured they potentially just want to attack me, because I can just throw off another Air Slash and put him right into the next one, even without my Life Orb, but that's completely fine. Light Screen's going to come off. That's fine. I just kind of need to stall out these Light Screen turns. Now, from here, in comes the Victini, and I'm thinking if it's Timid, max speed, even if it wins the speed tie, I have about a 50-50 roll to live this Glaciate and get a lot of damage off, which is really nice. And then I just have to win a speed tie with potentially Tentacle. If it's Choice Scarf, obviously I'm in a good position there. Now what's going to happen right here is I'm going to get into my Mence, and I am obviously going to get some rocks off on this thing. It's going to go for Glaciate, outspeed me, and kill me. Now, in all honesty, at this point, my Mence goes down. My play, obviously I go into Tentacruel. My play should have been to sub. My play should have been to sub, so I could end up behind the sub versus something like a potential Pikachu or something like versus this thing when it comes back in, because the way he's playing it right now shows me that he's most likely Choice Scarf, and because of that fact, it can kind of just switch out, come back in later. If I'm not buying a sub, I'm in a bad spot. So what's going to end up happening is he's going to go Pikachu, essentially kind of trying to sack it off at this point, as I am going to Scald to a KO this thing. I'm going to burn it. But what I'm going to try and do right here, because I know I don't live a Slice Shock anyways, is I'm just going to try and stall out this Light Screen turns, because I know it's not light play, and try and get back up to a point where maybe I can live like a super low roll Slice Shock, and if it's not Scarf, I can potentially win the speed tie, and if I do that, I actually 100% win this game, because I take advantage of that Vaporeon phenomenally. I can't do it after lefties. I don't even think the should knock me out. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to be able to just throw off a Scald. It's no drawback at this point. I don't have another play. They're going to reveal to outspeed me. They did end up being Scarf. They're modest Scarfs. There's no way I ever let that hit from full and knock me out. We're going to get knocked out round one of playoffs to Pichu. Now, I 100% attest this endgame to me not, playing my endgame right with my my sacks, and not calcing things correctly, not realizing I can knock out this Pikachu because it's not going to be evil. I can obviously knock it out with my Salamence and not go into my Metagross in second, when it did 60% minimum to me with knockoff. It was just kind of a lapse in judgment. I think it was early. I think it was playoff nerves, in all honesty, just really kind of putting me in a position where I just didn't manage my resources very well, and we're unfortunately going to drop round one. Despite that, I had an absolute blast this season. I really wanted to upload this just because I felt like it was high-level battles, it was high-level competition, at least to me, in my sphere of high level. I'm sure there's guys who are the absolute dudes, and they're playing in bigger leagues than I am, but for me, this is like the pinnacle of what I've played in so far, so I was pretty proud with how I performed this season. And I loved my team. I had so much fun with the team I drafted. It definitely had its flaws. Its bulky water was Tentacruel. I had to bring AV Metagross every week because I had no special sponges. There were definitely some flaws in it, but I had a lot of fun building and playing with it, and I really did enjoy the season. I want to give big shout outs to John Jr. and Diet Tight, my two good buddies who were actually in the league as well. We didn't actually end up playing in the regular season against each other at all, So we were able to kind of 100% wholeheartedly help each other in prep and mock help, and we all grinded this season and performed phenomenally, despite a lot of people thinking these guys probably shouldn't be in Evo. They're just here because, you know, they know the right APA people. We kind of nutted up and, you know, shut them up with the fact that John ended up getting 1 seed, and then me and Jason both ended up going 7-3. And, you know, I'm really proud of us for doing that, and I had so much fun this season, so I had to share it with you guys. But yeah, that's going to be my season. If you got through this far in the video, you're an absolute beast. You're an absolute trooper. Thank you so much. If you're here this long, you might as well drop a like at this point. So you obviously enjoyed it because you're sitting here for however long it ends up being after post-editing. But yeah, it would really help me out. It really lets me know you're enjoying, and drop a sub if you haven't done so already. If you enjoy these movie-type videos with you know, showdown content and things like that, let me know. I'd be happy to make more. I had a lot of fun recording this despite my throat obviously being shot at this point. But yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.